Good morning. I'm Robert White, council member at large and chair of the DC Council Committee on Housing. Today is Thursday, January 29th. The time is 6:39 a.m. and we're meeting in room 500 of the John A. Wilson Building as well as on Zoom. I'm calling to order this public performance oversight hearing of the committee. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to explain what a performance oversight hearing is and why it matters to our communities. Each year, the council holds performance oversight hearings to look closely at how DC agencies are doing their jobs, whether the money residents put into the city is coming back to them through real services, whether programs are reaching the people they are meant to serve, and whether government is showing up in ways that make a difference in everyday life. This is one of the most important ways the council helps our entire DC government stay accountable to residents. Performance oversight is not just about reports or compliance, it's about listening. It's about hearing directly from neighbors who rely on government services, from families navigating complex systems, and from agency leaders responsible for delivering results. We look at what's working and what's not, and where people are falling through the cracks, not to assign blame, but to make the system work better for our communities. What we hear today helps shape our oversight throughout the year, informs budget decisions, and guides future legislation. Today, we'll hear from all public witnesses who have signed up, then we'll turn to government representatives. First, we have the Real Estate Commission. The REC regulates the licenses of real estate professionals and upholds the district's real estate laws and regulations so that consumers receive professional and lawful treatment in one of the most important markets in their lives. The commission consists of 9 mayoral appointees, 3 real estate brokers, 2 real estate salespeople, 2 property managers, 1 real estate attorney, and 1 public member who represents consumer interests. Today, we will talk with Chairperson Edward Downs about how the commission is protecting consumers, how we can support their work, and how we can continue to refine the licensing and enforcement system so it keeps pace with the realities of the housing market. Next, we have the Board of Real Estate Appraisers, BREA. They regulate real estate appraisals, which are a key part of our housing ecosystem because they influence whether residents can buy a home, refinance, or build generational wealth. The board has 5 mayoral appointees, 3 licensed real estate appraisers, 1 real estate broker, and 1 consumer member. Today, we will speak with Chairperson Andrew Sullivan about how the board is working to keep appraisals fair and accurate, how it is addressing valuation bias, and how we can ensure the appraisal profession remains accessible and accountable to all our residents. After that, we will turn to the Rental Housing Commission. The Rental Housing Commission is a small, independent agency that has 3 main responsibilities. First, resolving appeals that arise from the Office of Administrative Hearings. Second, issuing rulemakings for legislation related to the Rental Housing Act. And third, certifying the annual rent adjustment for rent-stabilized housing. In the past, I've urged the Commission to move more quickly on its decisions and rulemakings. Today, we will speak to Chief Administrative Judge Adam Hunter about what progress has been made on timelines, as well as identify areas where the agency could broaden its scope and contribute their expertise to housing policy reform. Finally, we will hear from the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions. The Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions is a small legislative office that supports 46 ANCs and hundreds of commissioners. Its core work is reviewing ANC quarterly financial reports and advising on allotments, issuing guidance on grants and record keeping, and providing training and technology like ANC email, websites, and hybrid meeting tools. ANC commissioners work incredibly hard for their neighborhoods without pay and often without recognition, and I want to acknowledge that at the outset. During my time as chair of this committee and as a council member and chair of the committee with oversight over the OANC, my office has increased FTEs from 4.5 to 9.5, operating budget from $1.2 million to $2.5 million, and allocations to ANCs from $678,000 to $916,000 when comparing FY19 to FY26. We have made substantial investments in the Office of ANC to be responsive to the concerns that I've continued to hear from ANC commissioners. At the same time, there's been real confusion about OANC's role, including among commissioners and the committee, about when the office is simply advisory and when it has any authority at all. One of my priorities in this hearing is to ask OANC in plain language to explain how it sees its role, where it is offering guidance, and where it is exercising clear authority over ANC finances and compliance. In the past, I have pushed OANC to move from a reactive help desk to a proactive oversight and support hub for neighborhood democracy. Today, we will talk with Director Bass about how the office is clarifying its role, strengthening financial integrity, using new training and technology to make ANC operations more transparent and accessible, and what tools it needs to oversee new responsibilities like emergency grant programs and accountability for misuse of ANC funds. Before we start hearing from witnesses, I want to lay out the ground rules for our public witnesses. Everyone should have received a copy of the witness list yesterday. I'll call people on the list in panels. People who have testified before my committee before know that we use the witness list as a guide, but do our best to get everybody's statement, which means we may need to have some flexibility, although with very few public witnesses today, that shouldn't be an issue. But please, most of our witnesses are understandably virtual today, so please listen closely whenever I'm calling up witnesses. When I call your name as part of a panel, if you are in the hearing room, please take a seat at the witness table in front of me. For people on Zoom, staff will promote you to Zoom attendee, from Zoom attendee to Zoom panelist when I call your name so that you can testify. You may need to click accept promotion. When you are promoted, you'll drop out of the hearing momentarily and come back in as a panelist, after which time you'll be able to unmute. Public witnesses have 4 minutes to testify. Advisory neighborhood commissioners have 5 minutes to testify. And my committee, after that, we will hear from our government witnesses who have 10 minutes to testify. Last note, if you see me and my team looking down during your testimony, which you often will, it is almost certainly because we are taking notes or my team is managing the hearing. But I wanted to make sure people know that when you are testifying, I am listening and not scrolling on the internet. It is important that people know that when they come to our committee, there's a high level of respect and appreciation for you coming. And want to make sure you know when I'm looking down why I'm doing that. So we will now turn to our public witnesses, Antonio Myers and David Maloff, who I believe are both virtual. If there are any other public witnesses, not ANC commissioners, they'll be on the next panel, but if there are any more public witnesses who wish to testify who did not sign up, you can come forward at this time, and we will promote our virtual witnesses. All right, David Maloff, you can begin your testimony and welcome.
Good morning, sir. I am David Maloff, a 43-year resident of Ward 2 and past president of the DC Federation of Citizens Associations. At that time, the Federation was an umbrella group of 27 neighborhood, community, civic, and citizens associations in every ward. Thank you for allowing me to testify. DC has come a long way under BEGA and the Open Meetings Act. It is high time for the advisory neighborhood commissions, the ANCs, to be brought under BEGA, oversight, and the OMA. Citizens never want to go back to the old days that on occasion inside DC government included self-dealing, corruption, translucency, opacity, and overall bad good government. In order for DC to evolve in a positive manner, the council eventually needs to be expanded and reconfigured for the future, likely from a now too small unicameral to a normal bicameral. In order to do this, the 46 advisory neighborhood commissions, totaling nearly 350 talented, well-intentioned, and elected members, should follow all the laws and procedures of the mayoral agencies, the council, and all other key governmental boards are expected to follow. The one glaring exception today is the ANCs. I believe all the several talented elected ANC commissioners I know would agree, and I believe they should be paid a stipend for public service going forward too. These are our future leaders waiting in the wings, but toiling away largely selflessly. Last year, BEGA recommended on February 3rd, 2025 to the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee that the ANCs be brought under OMA. This year, BEGA's directors, again in her testimony, made it clear that the ANCs under OMA are a top legislative recommendation. However, I do not see this issue covered at all in ANC's testimony today. In the past, I've witnessed a wide variability in some ANC's quality of governance and public stewardship conduct handling great weight matters. If some of it was shockingly close-minded, sloppily procedured, and unprofessional, even immature in neglecting my ANC's own bylaws, all easily corrected for the most part, I believe, with a bit of BEGA training and OMA oversight. Yet another nearby ANC I worked with in Ward 1B, in contrast, is to me a true model of hard work, transparency, accountability to their neighborhood, and I'll say it again, tirelessness. In order for DC to move forward with more competent and transparent ANC supporting the electorate and the council DC-wide, it is time to move this issue ahead now and put the ANCs under OMA. A council bill should be easy to draft since nearly everyone is aware of the blind spot that needs to be corrected in the ANC's rules of the road variously proscribed today piecemeal under the Sunshine Act, the ANC Act, and a small part of the OMA. Otherwise, sir, our DC government may not ever be ready for prime time. I heartily suggest this committee take time this morning to discuss this issue with the OANC officials and for the OANC officials to chat with BEGA. I chatted with a member of OANC about 3 weeks ago, and that person was unaware that BEGA had testified on this issue last year. So there's a disconnect. And let's everybody come together on what the priorities are. And I think these two agencies should be speaking with one another about one another's recommendations. Thank you. And again, I'm very grateful you took the time.
Thank you very much for being with us. Antonio Myers, I don't see you. So if you are with us, please reach out to the committee quickly. Mr. Maloff, thank you for your testimony. Let me clarify something. Your references to OMA, are you referring to the Open Meetings Act?
That's correct, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, just making sure. At first, I thought you were talking about an agency, and I'm like scrambling to figure out what OMA is.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. So when you recommend that commissioners should be required to follow all the laws of the council and administrative agencies, you are talking about the Open Meetings Act or more broadly?
Yes, I'm in to process and transparency for citizens. The OMA covers a lot of that under its Open Meetings Act requirements. There may need to be a couple of other tweaks with the ANCs, like saying something as basic as, if you've got bylaws, you need to follow them. If the bylaws state that the public gets to speak when a major amendment is proposed to a resolution, then you don't shut everyone down on WebEx and go back and say, you had your opportunity to speak in the first 45 minutes of the meeting. Well, most citizens don't carry a crystal ball or a Ouija board to know what to say when later, an hour later in the meeting, an ANC commissioner makes a major change to a resolution. So these are very basic process things. And I take it that a little bit of smartening up on what's fair and what's good procedure, much of which is included in the OMA, will be a good thing for everybody.
I appreciate that, and I'm in agreement that the professionalism of our commissions is important for a number of reasons. One, so that they're following the law and can get things done, but also because when that breaks down, people don't want to be commissioners. It makes the work even harder than it needs to be, and I've heard some of that from commissioners in the city. How do you have recommendations on what that would look like in practice? So there is often turnover in commissioners. They have full-time jobs and don't have the level of support staff that say we have here at the council. So how do we ensure that commissioners are up to speed on things like the Open Meetings Act, and that there is some way to track if there's a dispute during a meeting, how we would resolve that?
Well, currently, as I understand it, the ANCs are not covered by much of the Open Meetings Act at all. That's the point here. We need to bring the ANCs. It's the only exception that I'm aware of that's been excluded. And this has been going on for a while. So I'm not educated on all of the legislative history here, but I think it's high time and it's practical for everyone to be kind of on the same fair play book. What it would look like, there are people here that are much smarter on all this than me. You've got commissioners coming up today, one of whom I greatly respect and I've been working with as well on other DOB related failures and agency problems. But the people know on your team what needs to be done. We just need to do it. I think I'm probably the last guy to ask on all the details. The general counsel at the ANC, I think she knows the right thing to do, and you ought to push them to speak truthfully on their role as adult supervision, if you will, or like a venture capital firm, providing counsel, good counsel to the entrepreneurial legislators. They know what to do to fix this here, and it needs to be done now.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us today. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. All right, we are going to hear from a number of ANC commissioners at this time. So I'm going to call Commissioner Trupti Patel, 2A03, who I see here in person, Robbie Woodland, 8C06, Chuck Elkins, 3D01, Commissioner Joe Bishop Henchman, 5F06, Commissioner Adam Prenzo, 3C02, and Commissioner Dion Brown, 8D01. Commissioner Patel, welcome. Good to have you with us. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson White. Thank you for convening this hearing and for the opportunity to enter my comments into the permanent record. Before I go into my testimony, I do want to respectfully push back against Mr. Maloff. ANCs are required to follow the Open Meetings Act, so I don't know why he's making the assumption that ANC commissions do not follow the Open Meetings Act. We are required by law. We have been advised by the Office of Attorney General on that matter. So I've had conversations about that, so I just wanted to make sure to notate that for the record, number one.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Trupti Patel, and I am a fourth-term Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner representing Single-Member District 2A03, which is the bulk of the historic Foggy Bottom. ANCs play a critical role in connecting residents to district government, and our effectiveness is directly tied to the tools, training, and support we receive. Over many years, commissioners across the city have been candid about the challenges they face. And through ACTOS, the Advisory Committee to Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions Services, many of us have spent time thinking constructively about what an effective Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commission should look like. I want to be clear at the onset that my remarks today are not a critique of individual leadership, past or present. Former Executive Director Gottlieb Simon served the city with dedication, and growth of ANC systems simply outpaced what small offices could reasonably support. Likewise, I appreciate the work of Director Kent Bass and OANC staff are doing under challenging circumstances. When I testified before you last year, I was optimistic about the direction OANC was heading. Since then, staffing has increased and additional resources have been made available, which is meaningful progress. At the same time, the demands placed on ANCs continue to grow, and the support infrastructure has not fully caught up. This is less about fault and more about capacity. DC's population has grown significantly, and with it, the workload expected of volunteer commissioners. Many of us are managing increasingly complex constituent concerns, regulatory matters, and interagency coordination. As a senior commissioner in ANC 2A, I routinely spend 25 to 30 hours a week on this role. While I'm committed to the work, this level of demand is difficult to sustain long-term and contributes to burnout across the system. This strain also affects recruitment and retention. Some residents are hesitant to run for ANC seats, not because they lack civic interest because the role appears overwhelming and insufficiently supported. In addition, commissioners often face difficult interpersonal dynamics, both internally and members with the public, which can be discouraging without clear guidance and institutional backing. All of this underscores the need to continue strengthening OANC so it can better support commissioners and ultimately the residents we serve. With that in mind, I'd like to offer several constructive recommendations. First, OANC could play a stronger role in play a stronger convening role by hosting regular quarterly meetings for commissioners. In addition, ward-based or officer-specific roundtables, which I would like your office to hold, sir, would help a lot of the commissioners, would provide valuable spaces for information sharing and collaboration. Second, establishing a peer-to-peer best practices exchange would help commissioners learn from one another and reduce inefficiencies. There's a great deal of institutional knowledge within the ANC community that can be better leveraged. Third, creating a centralized searchable repository of ANC resolutions would promote consistency and would make it easier for commissions to build on one another's work rather than starting from scratch. Fourth, OANC should develop a Know Your Rights guide for ANCs, particularly around meeting management and responding to disruptive behavior. This would help commissioners feel more confident and supported while ensuring increasing meetings remain accessible and orderly. Fifth, I encourage the consideration of the centralization of financial management functions. This could reduce administrative burdens on individuals and create consistency and compliance support across the board. I'm almost done. Sixth, providing dedicated administrative or technical support at the ward level, would allow commissioners to focus on their core advisory role than operational tasks. Finally, I recommend establishing a working group of commissioners to assess needs and identify practical ways the district and OANC can continue to strengthen the ANC system. OANC has been an essential resource for many commissioners, and with the right level of investment and structural support, it can be even more effective. Viewing ANCs as integral partners in local governance and resourcing them accordingly will benefit not only the commissioners, but the district agencies and residents alike. Thank you for your time and for your continued attention to this important work.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Chuck Elkins, 3D01, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every year for the last 4 years, I've brought to the attention of OANC and this committee the fact that in a survey that was conducted several years ago of all ANC commissioners, more than 2/3 of these commissioners asked for help from OANC with regard to interacting effectively with district agencies and departments. I've attached the results of that survey to this testimony in the written form. OANC has chosen not to respond to these commissioner requests in these 4 years, and this committee also has not worked with OANC to help them meet this need. If you take a look at the very restrictive view that OANC takes with regard to the technical assistance that it provides commissioners, one could conclude that OANC thinks the primary purpose of ANCs is to hold monthly meetings and keep their finances in good order. Now, these are all very important, of course, but these actions are only means to an end. And that end, as written into the ANC statute, is to have a positive impact on the delivery of services in the District of Columbia. I've attached a highlighted copy of the portion of the statute that lays out this core purpose of ANCs. I believe that most commissioners run for office hoping to make a difference for their neighborhood. What they find, as we all know, is that it is actually very difficult for ANCs to make a difference in the services that districts, departments, and agencies provide to their constituents. What is really disturbing is that despite commissioner requests for OANC to help them be more effective in working with these agencies, OANC provides them very little help in doing so. Some time back, I wrote a proposed chapter for OANC's draft strategic plan that laid out a number of simple steps that OANC could take to support commissioners in working with these agencies. I've attached a copy of my draft chapter to this testimony. Fundamentally, OANC could work with a small selected set of departments and examine how ANCs in the department now interact and how that interaction could be enhanced for the benefit of both ANCs and the agency. OANC could also help commissioners find other commissioners from across the district who want to work on the same problems and collaborate in crafting more useful advice for the agencies. As a result, a staff member in OANC devoted to this work could first improve ANC commissioners' sense that they're making a difference, and therefore increase the likelihood that they will want to continue serving for more than one term. Secondly, promote a sense among the agencies that they're receiving truly helpful advice from ANCs and can use it to enhance the delivery of their governmental services, sometimes in collaboration with ANCs. And thirdly, improve the quality of the advice provided by ANCs to agencies by fostering cooperative efforts among ANC commissioners from across the district who have an interest in solving the same problems. In summary, I know that OANC staff work hard and want to see ANCs succeed. However, they are, I believe, trying to make the administrative aspects of running a commission near perfect while missing the need to help commissioners work more effectively with the agencies. If this year the committee can find a way to provide one more staff person to OANC to do this, that would be great. If not, then I think we should declare that a portion of the administrative support, though certainly not perfect, to be good enough for now so that one or more OANC staff members could turn their attention to assisting commissioners succeed in helping the departments and agencies do a better job in delivering their services to the residents of the district. I hope this year that this committee will respond affirmatively to these requests from ANC commissioners regarding the services they really need to be successful. Finally, I want to remind the committee that, as you know, Mr. Chairman, that at the last election, 40% of our commissioners decided not to run, and we do not know why, but we should. So I suggest that OANC be asked immediately to start drafting a survey that could be sent to departing commissioners in order to learn in depth why these commissioners decide not to run for office again. Then in August, we will know exactly who was chosen not to run again, and this survey can be sent to them while they're still serving as commissioners. In that survey, there should be a question of whether or not the commissioner would be willing to have an individual exit interview. If the answer is affirmative, I suggest the experienced ANC commissioners be asked to conduct these exit interviews. They will be more trusted and more knowledgeable to conduct these interviews than OAN staff, I believe. The results of these surveys and exit interviews could be made anonymous and then provided to the committee, OANC, and the ANC Advisory Committee. In short, let's not miss this opportunity with the coming election to learn this very valuable information of why so many commissioners leave at every election. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Joe Bishop Henchman, 5F06. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you and the members of the committee for championing the bills necessary to keep ANCs operating and securing resources for OANC. We commissioners are your 345 eyes on the ground, both for the council members and for our mutual constituents. I first wanted to, I was very intrigued by Mr. Maloff's testimony because it's not at odds with my experience, at least, that ANCs don't have any open meeting obligations. We certainly do. 309, DC Code 309.11B3 requires that all ANCs have a public comment period during every ANC meeting, and 309.11G requires that we basically can't do closed meetings except in areas of personnel or legal matters. And in both of these scores, that's actually stronger than the general DC Open Meetings Act, where I think there's 16 exceptions allowing a closed meeting in that. We only have 2. So, and I think the only main point Mr. Maloff had is he wanted to be able to comment before every vote during an ANC meeting, but that's not a requirement under the Open Meeting Act. Certainly not what council does. You don't allow the public to chime in before every vote the council takes in open session. So, you know, I want to be very cautious about maybe going down the road that Mr. Maloff talked about. But I'm mainly here to talk about what's next with further OANC reforms and reforms to the ANC statute. The committee and you in particular, Chairman White, have done a great job championing a lot of these improvements over the years, and we appreciate them, including permanently authorizing ANC remote and hybrid operations, as well as ensuring that we have the equipment resources to be able to do those meetings, which make them much more accessible to the community. And currently in progress, having a website capability that is more centrally managed and allows ANCs to do the job of being an ANC without also having to be an IT technician. The next thing that I hope that the committee will turn to is next on the to-do list is utilizing the CFO or OANC to receive funds and pay bills, rather than having ANCs do it through private banks and putting the obligation of being accountants and auditors on the commissioners and the commission treasurers. I'm very supportive of Commissioner Elkin's idea of surveying why commissioners don't run again. I imagine an answer that you would hear if we did such a survey is that the job of being an ANC treasurer is enormously burdensome, and we don't put enough resources in helping treasurers do that job. Just as an example, the quarterly financial review process that every ANC has to do, well, first we close our books and we make sure we have all of the receipts and records. We fill out the QFR form and we submit it. We have to vote on the QFR in our commission meeting and adopt it. And sometimes, because we only meet once a month, there's a delay there involved in that. And then the following month, we approve the minutes from the meeting where we adopted the QFR, because OANC requires those to be included. And then we send those minutes. And so this is why it sometimes takes multiple meetings and really a lot of steps in order to do what should be a very quick, for most commissions, a very quick process of closing out all of the expenses that they had during the year. I know OANC is working on a way to make that a more streamlined process. I hope you'll question them closely on what that will look like, because right now it's too many steps, and I think you see it in that a lot of commissions are behind on QFRs, or not doing the job as much as well as the OANC wants them to do. And I don't think that's malevolence. I don't think that's laziness. I think that's we're really asking too much of our treasurers for this compliance requirement without additional help or additional structure. You, Councilmember White, and other council members, I mean, you don't have to open a bank account for your council staff. You don't have to send out the 1099s yourself. You're able to tap into a centralized government apparatus to do it, and to do it right. And ANCs would like to participate in that as well. I mean, at least give us the option to be able to do it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Commissioner. Adam Prenzo, no, I'm sorry, Commissioner Dion Brown, 8D01. All right, Commissioner, you are muted.
Good morning again, Councilmember White and members of the committee. I greet you as a lifelong Washingtonian, 25-year resident of Bellevue, representative of Single Member District 8D01, and chair of ANC 8D. While this is not my first term, my previous service was over a decade ago. The Office of ANC has always been a valuable resource supporting the compliance and efficacy of those of us elected to serve on an unpaid basis. Gottlieb Simon was legendary for his steadfast devotion to the cause of Kent Bays has filled his big shoes with flair. I thank the council for seeing fit to expand the office's personnel and hence the range of services they are able to provide, most notably online training and assistance with enabling technology, including individual websites being made available to commissions for the asking. Commissioners throughout the city could not do what we do without them. As such, I raised the following issues and recommendations I've encountered over the past year. with the hope for more accountability, transparency, and professionalism. I'm going to start at the end with my recommendations for the sake of time, and we can back into the issues if necessary. First, publish a physical ANC handbook to centralize information as in the years past. When I served before, we each received a binder that had, the statute, all administrative items we needed, as well as our individual commissions governing documents. I currently am the only one with a copy of our standard operating procedures only because I served before. Secondly, require OANC General Counsel to review and certify ward task force recommendations to ensure redistricting plans conform with statutory guidelines and bylaws are updated to reflect adjusted number of seats. Ours have not been updated in 9 years and need to do so. Third, create an advocacy mechanism whereby ANC resolutions can gain traction and responsible government officials are held accountable. Fourth, establish a more streamlined manner of dismissing parking citations issued despite properly displayed placards. I have appealed mine and they don't go away. Fifth, demand OANC to implement controls to ensure outgoing treasurers relinquish the checkbook either to the chair, OANC, this committee staff, or OCFO within a prescribed time frame. Our outgoing treasurer held ours hostage for 4 months and we could not be operational. Perform an independent analysis to remediate material weaknesses. Many of the auditor's recent findings should have been prevented during OANC reviews. 7, require approval of commissions as well as the signature of 2 officers to process financial transactions consistent with statutory requirements and our bylaws. We had a transaction processed for over $2,000 for a media kit based on a simple conversation and no action of the commission. 8, provide transparency with courtesy copies of commission level communications to the chair at a minimum, or the entire commission or individual commissioners as relevant. 9, establish professional boundaries on when and how OANC can intervene in commission affairs. 10, require OANC staff to recuse themselves from investigations of which they are a subject to preserve the integrity of the process. As a management consultant by trade, the inefficiency of this position wears on me. I ended my previous service because I have never spent so much time getting so little done. Compelling issues forced my return, but resulted in deja vu all over again. Personality conflicts are inevitable, but we should manage them like the adults we are. OANC should not be weaponized against individual commissioners, as has been the case with me. Although this is an uncompensated position, I do have protections against the hostile work environment this has become at the hands of DC government employees. The marginalization and abuse have become persistent to meet that definition. My antagonists have accused me of many things. I'm not chasing power, I'm chasing progress to build results for the common good that endure. My character has never been called into question, but attacked nonetheless. All I ask is for you and those with oversight of OANC is to take necessary measures so I and other commissioners can do that which we were entrusted by our constituents without micromanaging, obstruction, or undue interference. Preserve our autonomy. I make no apology for pressing on with purpose, but also ask for you not to take for granted that I will continue to do so in this space under these conditions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you for your testimony, Commissioner, and thank you all. And that is a good note to end commission testimonies on. Commissioner, I don't take for granted your willingness to serve and how much work and sacrifice it requires. It's testimonies like these from commissioners when I got to the council that led me to really push an unprecedented growth in the agency. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I have more than doubled the size of the agency, both by personnel and budget. When those investments became static, then I had to move to making changes within agency leadership. The reason I requested that OANC work with commissioners to do a strategic plan going forward is because each increase in the ANC budget was met with some pushback here in the council. I mean, we have only so many dollars. And when I'm suggesting that we should invest in another FTE or another, 10, 30, 40 thousand dollars in the agency, and council members push back, I realize what we really need is a roadmap. It needs to be clear what the future of this agency is, where it is going, so that it didn't seem like I was bringing ad hoc requests to the council every year, because I knew we were reaching the end of the line on things we could get funded without that. I'm reading in the OANC's responses to pre-hearing questions that the strategic plan is not a high priority of the agency, and so we'll discuss that later. But let's dig into these issues so we can see where to go from here, because when commissioners leave, that is a bad sign. When people don't want to run for commission offices, that is a bad sign. That's a breakdown, and we have to avoid that. Yeah, there is some response in the pre-hearing questions, Commissioner Elkins, on OANC's position and strategy on assisting commissions with agency liaisons. They suggest that they're taking a two-track approach in the short term, working to convene a pilot quarterly liaison town hall focused on basically the highest volume of complaints, public space, permitting, sanitation, things like that. And inviting each agency liaison or representative to participate. What are you not seeing now, Commissioner Elkins, that you would like to see, that you think it would make it easier for commissioners to get traction with agencies?
Well, first of all, I did see that response from OANC, and I thought, well, of all the people they should have us meeting with, it's not the liaison people. Those people generally are not very helpful, and I'm not going to pick out any particular ones. I think my colleagues would support me on that. We need to be talking to people who are actually making decisions in the agencies. It seems to me just the chapter that I laid out for the strategy lays out a number of things, but particularly, I think it would be useful to just take one or two departments, DOB, DDOT, or whatever, and where most of the commissions are working with, and start asking both the agency and the ANC commissioners what is working and what is not working. Just to take one example, how many times do the resolutions from an ANC actually get responded to by the agency? Rarely, and yet that's required by the statute. Now, do we need a response to every single one? Well, maybe not, but certainly if you spend that much time working on a resolution, you certainly would hope to at least have somebody in the leadership read it and say why it's a good idea or not a good idea. So I could go on and on, Mr. Chairman. I don't think you want me to. Basically, I've laid out in writing what I think the department can do, the office can do, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard. One staff member could do an awful lot of it.
The agency has to want to pursue that road if there were to be a staff member. So we'll discuss that with the agency. But here's a question, Commissioner Elkins. If the agencies don't respond to elected commissioners, why would they respond to the Office of ANC?
Well, I think the OANC represents all the ANCs, and basically it would be saying to the department, look, we can see from what's happening that it's not working as well as it might, and you're not getting as good advice as you might get, and the commissioners are not getting responses. Can we figure out a way in which there could be a more positive relationship, even more positive relationship between the department and the ANCs? And I think many of us could give lots of examples of things some of these departments could do that are not really that hard. it's my view that the departments would actually find this useful. I think they find working with 46 commissions to be a little challenging.
Mhm.
And what can the OANC do to sort of help make it so it's not 46 separate ones, but sort of an institutional group of organizations that can be dealt with in more than just one at a time. I mean, there's lots of ideas here. It's just they're not being explored.
Commissioner Patel, I'm hearing concern about burnout from the commissioners who are testifying. Of course, Commissioner Elkins testified that 40% of commissioners did not run for reelection recently, and so we've got to heed these messages. What would reduce burnout and make being a commissioner less overwhelming, in your opinion?
Thank you for the question, Chairperson White. And so from what I've constantly heard, not immediately within ANC 2A, but just citywide, there's no like support system. And I'm not saying that's OANC's fault at all. It's just that the learning curve is really steep. A lot of my incoming ANC commissioners, they want to do this work and then they come and then they're like coming to these meetings and they're like, I got to weigh in on all these issues. I don't know what these issues are. And so it's almost kind of like the deer in headlights look. Like I had a very supportive ANC commission when I first started. And like the learning curve is anywhere from 6 to 9 months just to kind of realize like how to show up in a meeting, learning the Roberts Rules procedures, all of these things. And then when you do finally learn, then when you're a good one, you're not rewarded with like, you're such a great commissioner, good job. You get rewarded with a lot more work.
They make you treasurer.
You treasurer, they make you the chair, they make you all sorts of things. And, and it's like the better you get at the job, the more responsibility and more pressure that the commissioner faces. I mean, I've had like first term commissioners, when I like saw some really sharp, amazing, bright talent come through the ANCs. And then I say, why are you leaving? And they start saying, the workload is way more than what they thought it was going to be. The responsibility is a lot more than what they thought it was going to be. And for an unpaid volunteer position, it's asking quite a bit. And then, as commission colleagues have pointed out, like when interpersonal conflicts start happening, like within the ANC and within members of the public, nobody wants to be not paid and then they have to go to a meeting and get yelled at, get abused. I've had members of the public lob racist comments at me. I've had commissioners threaten physical violence against one another on ANC 2A. People make accusations, and you're sitting there in this meeting and you're thinking to yourself, why am I doing this? Like my mother, whom you've met, who adores you, is like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this? Like, you get nothing but abuse. You spend all your off days doing nothing but ANC work. You go to these hearings, you do the work, and you've got to be in community with people who could care less.
Yeah.
And it burns you out. It makes you not want to do this. And like, I look to my senior ANC colleagues, like Commissioner Elkins, like we've colloquially have called him the ANC dad because he motivates us. He coaches a lot of us. He keeps us grounded. And like we need people like Commissioner Elkins, like I'm trying to coach people too. Like I'm paying it forward. And that leads to burnout. I'm not saying that's necessarily OANC's role, but I think, just kind of having like a framework for a new which by the way is happening now, like incoming commissioners know, like they can reach out to OANC, they're going to get some guidance, all of these things. But I can tell you when I started 10 years ago, I didn't have that. I didn't have that formalization like where it is now. So when I was giving my testimony, that's why I made it a point to say, this is not a ding at the agency at all. It's not a ding at past leadership or current leadership. This is more along the lines, and I think, I'm not going to speak for the rest of my colleagues. I think we see OANC as like, wow, we're getting somewhere. it's not enough because we're just growing so much quicker and outpacing than what the agency has been given. And we are very, very appreciative of, well, I'm not going to say, speak for my colleagues. I'm very appreciative for the staff of OANC. I think they'd like to throw me out of their office a lot because I see them way too much. But anytime I go to them for help, they have been very
Let me
great.
dig into a couple specific things, but let me start with, have any of the commissioners here, are you, any of you treasurers, or have you been the treasurer?
I am.
No.
It's the financial management, a couple commissioners mentioned the need for assistance with the financial management. Can you talk about what that requires? And yeah, can you talk about what that requires?
Well, it is a lot of work, and you have to be pretty rigorous about it and dedicated, and um, you have to have the right receipts when you write a check, and you don't always have them, and so you find yourself chasing around to do this. I I'm retired, so I can make time. I don't have another job I have to go to, um, uh, 9 to 5 or even greater than that. A lot of these commissioners, quite frankly, just may say this, a lot of these commissioners are in their mid-career. This is when they're spending 16 hours a day on their job, and they need to get ahead, and so to also have this additional work. So it's been suggested that if we could have this done centrally, it would really take some of the burden off treasurers, and I think we'd have more accurate record keeping. I think at a minimum, I would suggest that a study be done of how it could be centralized and what the difference would really be for treasurers. I mean, let's not jump to conclusions that centralization is absolutely going to save treasurers hours and hours of time. Maybe it won't. I think a study is certainly worthwhile. I think of all the jobs that people have to do, the treasurer one is the most unattractive. Being chair, at least you get to sit up there and be in charge of something. Treasurer is a thankless job.
It is. For Commissioner Patel and then others who want to weigh in here, please do. A commissioner, I happened to be talking to a commissioner about an unrelated matter yesterday, and she just raised concern since she had me on the phone about what she said was an increasingly hostile environment for commissioners. Insults, lies, disrespect. We've heard some of this testimony from you, and she asked for help. Do you see, where do ANCs turn when they are concerned about treatment on the commission from other commissioners?
That's a really good question. When you find out the answer, can you let me know? Because I'm still looking for that resource. It just, what's really frustrating is that ANCs fall in this gray area. We are required to follow so many aspects of the law, and a lot of us do that. And then we're told that we're not under any type of protections because we're unpaid volunteers. My executive director that I employ, she's not an employee, she's a contractor, but who is contracted to do work for us, is given more legal protections in the workplace than I am, and I'm the chair of the commission. And, it's like ANCs have more leeway in dealing with an unruly, hostile member of the public. But what's an unruly, hostile colleague, we're essentially told, well, there's nothing you can do unless you want to go take it into private matters. Okay, you can file charges against them if they threaten you physically, and it's kind of but there's got to be some kind of mechanism of accountability. Just like when you serve on the council, there's an expectation that you guys are not going to break the law. You're going to operate within a bound of ethics. I think there needs to be a similar framework for ANC commissioners, but no one wants to legislate it. Nobody wants to take it on because everybody keeps saying, well, it increases the burden on government agencies. Well, I think you now may need to pick on which burden you want to have, because as my colleague Commissioner Elkins has pointed out, like, you're seeing an attrition of ANC commissioners. You're seeing less and less of us come back. You know, at this point, I don't plan on doing this forever. I've been doing this now on year 8, but at some point, I am going to want to step down. I am going to want to step away from the ANC world. And when I leave, as Commissioner Elkins will talk about, that's 8 to 10 to 12 years worth of institutional knowledge that I'm walking away with. And we're having to reinvent the wheel. And I think a lot of this hostility, this negativity is like, people remembering past grievances, or, people wanting to see the operation of an ANC commission operate within a different bound, like, I can tell you, like, I've had allegations leveled against me as the chair. I've been told that I'm not running ANC in a legal way, which is not true. I have been running it in a legal way. But when certain narratives like that get touted publicly in open meetings, it's damaging to the credibility of not only myself as the chair, but the institution as the ANC. And it's kind of like, where do we draw the line? And, I don't know how many of my other colleagues have had these kind of hostile exchanges, and if they have some tips and tricks to share, I'm open to them.
So, yeah, I would say, there's no law prohibiting council members from yelling at each other. There's decorum, which is enforced by the body. But when there are questions, we have an office of general counsel. And I think as much as we can view the supports needed for commissioners in the light of the supports that are given to the council, I think we're increasingly on the right track. Let me ask Commissioner Bishop Henchman, I think you were one of the other commissioners who mentioned the role of the treasurer being particularly difficult in your testimony. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Can you say a bit more about that?
Other than to kind of star and exclamation point everything Commissioner Elkins said, as well as his idea of maybe doing a study on how central operation will improve. I think he laid it out very, very well. It's a fact of life that we need our financials to be accurate. The auditor expects them to be accurate. The law requires them to be accurate. And a lot of other organizations that are not ANCs, you hire professional accountants to do this. You hire outside auditing firms to do this. You have full-time staff to do this. ANCs, we're dependent wholly on ourselves and our treasurers. And yes, we do have, when I raised this with Chairman Mendelson, he said, well, you get funding to hire somebody to help this. It's like, well, our budget, the funding we get every year is $18,000 for everything. We're not hiring an accounting firm for that amount of money. So we kind of have to do it ourselves. And if you look at question, I think 25 or so on the OANC answers, they report that 53% of commissions are late on their QFRs. It's not that 53% of commissions are being financially reckless. It's that it's tough to do. It's hard to do. Even in my commission, which I chair, we're diligent about it. We have everything up to date at all times. We put the QFR on our agenda the first meeting. We respond to OANC and auditor emails instantly. But even then, I think we don't have a 100% track record because it's tough to do all of these things.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Brown, you gave a number of very good recommendations in your testimony, so thank you for that. If you had to boil it down to one or two things that would, because you said you left the commission and came back, so you seem to understand the burnout and frustration aspect. If there were one or two things that you think would make being a commissioner more sustainable, less overwhelming, what would that thing or things be?
Public duels.
I hope you have one more at least.
Yeah, I think some people get out of hand because they know they don't risk a foot up their butt.
Tough.
Really, I think we need to be supported in a more defined manner.
Mhm.
You know, we have the Office of ANC, they are well staffed, but more often than not, when I go to them for technical assistance, I walk away with nothing. I get some words, I get a pat on the back, but I don't get any teeth in what we do. I don't get any force, you know, with the agency heads. I don't, yeah, and even like if we have a procedural issue, you know, I mean, walk away with conflicting, you know, parliamentary guidelines. Yeah, it's just muddy. It's so muddy. And again, as I said as my closing, I never spent so much time getting so little done.
Yeah.
And I mean, even minor issues with agencies, it takes about 5 emails to get what one should have done. We get ignored. We're Rodney Dangerfield of DC government. Nobody respects us. They are grateful when we come through for them,
Yeah.
but then at the end of the day, they don't really respect us. And we don't have any grounds to command respect. So, and somebody asked me, one of my out-of-state friends asked me, what is an advisory neighborhood commissioner? I said, we're elected officials about halfway between council member and dog catcher.
Mhm.
So, and even DC government officials don't really understand, or they're willfully ignorant about our powers. We do have power, but we don't have partners that help us exercise that power. That's what we need.
Sure. I appreciate that. Well, commissioners, thank you for not only your valuable insights coming to today's oversight hearing, but thank you for the ongoing work that you and your colleagues do. It is a lot of work and without enough resources, and I am sensitive to that and have tried to put money where my mouth is and want to continue to support ANC commissioners because I don't like when commissioners come to our oversight hearings and say, look, it's too hard and we don't have the supports we need. So we will keep working. Thank you very much for being with us. All right, we will now turn to our government agencies, and we will start with Edward Downs, Chair of the Rental Housing Commission. Welcome. I'm sorry, I knew I had something wrong. Real Estate Commission.
Yes.
I was so confused here for a moment.
Please, no lateral promotions.
So yeah, no, you don't want that.
No,
You don't want
no,
that.
sir. No, sir. This is a nicer room than last time.
It is.
It is. Should I take this as a compliment or?
I tried to, because there aren't too many over here, so I tried to.
Well, it's good to see you again. Let's get started here. Good morning, Chairperson White and members and staff of the Committee on Housing. I'm Edward Downs, Chairperson of the District of Columbia Real Estate Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser at today's hearing to discuss the activities and accomplishments of the Commission in fiscal year 25 to the present. I'd like to begin by thanking Mayor Muriel Bowser for appointing me to the Commission. Working with my fellow Commission members to uphold the integrity of the profession and protect consumers has been very rewarding, personally and professionally. I'm currently serving in my second year as chairperson of the commission, a position that I do not take for granted. I continue to be excited for the opportunity to serve on the commission and in this capacity. Our mission is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of district residents by assuring that licensed persons engaged in the practice of real estate transactions, as well as applicants seeking to engage in the practice of real estate, have the specialized skills and necessary training required to perform the real estate services governed by the commission. I'm pleased to be able to work with an engaged group of fellow commission members as well as the dedicated Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection staff and legal counsel. The commission consists of 9 members, including 3 real estate brokers, 2 property managers, 2 salespersons, 1 attorney, and 1 consumer member. Each real estate broker, salesperson, and property manager member must be licensed in the district. The attorney member must be engaged in the practice of real estate law. All members of the commission are required to be residents of the District of Columbia. The mayor, with the consent of the council, appoints each member of the commission who serves a maximum of 3 full consecutive 3-year terms. The commission meets every second Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m., except for August. The current commission members are Edward Downs, chair and broker member, Elizabeth Blakesley, vice chair and broker member, Monique Owens, property manager member, Erica Black, salesperson member, and Patrice Richardson, consumer member. We currently have 4 vacancies, including a real estate broker, a real estate salesperson, a property manager, and an attorney. DLCP and the commission are working closely with the Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointments to fill these vacancies. We anticipate resolutions being sent to the council soon. The commission is responsible for determining initial eligibility and renewal licensure requirements, establishing and monitoring compliance with continuing education requirements, continually monitoring standards for the professions involved in real estate transactions, and recommending changes as needed, along with receiving and resolving complaints against licensed real estate professionals. Further, the commission remains vigilant in our oversight of the Real Estate Guarantee and Education Fund. Since last year's performance oversight hearing, the commission has reviewed its pre-licensing property management exam data bank of questions, reassessing the validity of the questions, and developing and writing new questions for pre-test questions. In terms of outreach, the commission continued its ongoing efforts to inform younger generations about the real estate profession. During fiscal year 25, the commission engaged in several outreach activities with elementary, middle, and high school students. Specifically, the commission participated in outreach programs reaching 60 or more students at the Savoy Elementary School, and participated in a career presentation for 6 youths in the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. The students were enthusiastic about learning about the many fields of real estate. Additionally, the commission participated in an outreach activity at American University Kogod School of Business. We hope to expand our reach to the other colleges and universities in the district as well. The students were enthusiastic to learn about the many fields of real estate. In terms of license issuance, in comparing new real estate commission applications across fiscal years, in fiscal year 25, we received 1,023 new license applications. This is a 3.4% increase from fiscal year 24, in which 989 new license applications were received. Presently, for fiscal year 26 to date, we are tracking approximately 225 applications. If this pace continues, we project approximately 675 applications by year end, which would represent a significant drop compared to previous years. The commission is closely monitoring the number of applications and working with DLCP and the industry to explore what initiatives, administrative, programmatic, legislative, the district can take to address this. The real estate profession has been one of the district's strongest professions. There are a number of factors that impact licensure, and the commission is committed to doing its part to support and maintain the vibrancy of the profession. In terms of renewal applications, fiscal year 25 was a renewal year for real estate licensees. Licenses are renewed every 2 years. During the renewal period, 13,430 licensees renewed their licenses across the following license types: 9,424 salespersons, 2,314 brokers, 661 property managers, and 1,031 real estate organizations, which we call REOs. This represents a 4.08 increase from the last renewal period in fiscal year 23, where 12,904 licensees renewed their license. In terms of legislative and regulatory trends during fiscal year 25, the Commission continued to monitor legislative and regulatory trends across the country to determine what changes could be incorporated in the district. We will continue these efforts in fiscal year 26, while also reviewing the district's current laws and regulations governing real estate professionals. There is a wealth of opportunities to support current and future real estate licensed professionals, and we look forward to working with DLCP, Mayor Bowser, the council, and the real estate industry in achieving this goal. The Commission, however, did address one significant regulatory need in fiscal year 25. It arose during last year's performance oversight period as well. With the support of the Greater Capital Area Association of Realtors and several district agencies, including the Department of Energy and Environment, the Commission updated the seller disclosure form as set forth in 17 DCMR Section 2708. The amendments include updating terms to align with the Omnibus Domestic Partnership Equality Amendment Act of 2008, as well as to recognize the unique situation that property owners within condominiums have as it relates to their knowledge of aspects of the common elements of real property. Additionally, the seller disclosure form was amended to inquire about known instances of flooding or water intrusion on a property and to remove duplicative questions. Given the number of flooding incidents in the district over the last few years, inquiring about instances of flooding on the property is pivotal. In terms of educational programs, the Commission continues to expand its educational offerings through public-private partnerships with local agencies and private organizations. During fiscal year 25, the Commission and DLCP offered both virtual and in-person courses covering key topics, including DC legislative updates, fair housing, ethics, property management, and broker supervision in the district. These courses were held on the following dates: legislative update, fair housing, and ethics on July 24th, DC management and DC broker supervision in the district on the 25th of July. The Commission, in conjunction with DLCP, the Board of Real Estate Appraisers, and the DC Historic Preservation League, also sponsored a series of in-person seminars on historic preservation in the summer of last year. To remain current with fair housing laws and regulations, the Commission sponsored 2 in-person fair housing instructor development workshops at the Martin Luther King Library. These course offerings sought to ensure all education providers are knowledgeable about the teaching methodologies for delivering the material to licensees. Compliance with the Occupations and Professions Licensure Act of 1998. In fiscal year 25, the Commission received a total of 70 complaints. Each complaint was reviewed and determined to fall into one of the following categories: no violation, a civil matter, or outside the Commission's jurisdiction. As a result, no disciplinary action was taken on any of these cases. By comparison, in fiscal year 24, the Commission received 64 complaints, of which 2 resulted in disciplinary action taken against a licensee. In fiscal year 26 to date, the Commission has received 8 complaints. The Commission values transparency and publishes newsletters regularly, as well as consumer alerts that the public and licensees can view online on the Commission's website under Publications and Resources. The newsletters include disciplinary actions taken against licensees by the Commission, as well as articles for educational purposes and regulatory requirements. In conclusion, the Commission will continue to dutifully carry out its responsibility of protecting the public interest and welfare by upholding the letter and spirit of the law. District license law. The Commission appreciates the opportunity to share its accomplishments and plans for the future and looks forward to continuing to work with Mayor Bowser, DLCP, and the committee. Thank you for your leadership and support. This concludes my testimony. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Downs, for being with us. Thank you for the work that you and the commission members are doing. Want to run back first on a few things from your testimony. 4 vacancies. About how long have those vacancies been there?
Too long. Um, uh, About a year.
Okay.
I have personally been in touch with contacts at MODA
Okay.
to keep things moving along. I know that there's been a change of personnel at MODA. My contact changed. The latest report I have is that there are 4 people in the pipeline and that we really should be sending you all resolutions. And I pressed for some verification, and I won't say I was leaked names, but I think it's real.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, and that's been an ongoing concern of mine too.
Excellent. To the extent that things slow down and we can be helpful, let us know if we can help push. But I'll hold off unless we hear from you. But I do hope that's moving soon. I have to imagine it makes quorum difficult. You can't have that many vacancies. Commissioners can't have other obligations that get in the way of a single meeting. The test. Is this like is there a national standard test and you do local deviations?
I think I understand your question. It's very much, I'm told, very much like the law exam, where there's a national portion and then there's a smaller state or local portion.
Okay.
And so what the commission does is on a rotating basis, we'll review those questions
Okay.
for the different licenses. And it's, as you probably know, it's a real tedious process.
I imagine.
We're working with professional testing people.
Yes.
You learn a lot.
Who reviews you mentioned 1,023 license applications last year. Who reviews the applications? Do you all review all of those?
Every single one. Yeah. No. Well, we do have a system, if you will, set up where we will have the majority of them administratively approved. The online application has questions that would pop up red flags.
Okay.
If flags pop up from some of those screening questions, then they're referred to the commission for consideration. And I'm glad you brought this up simply because sometimes people say, well, what does the commission do?
Mm-hmm.
And, we work very hard to balance between our need to protect the public safety and to remove barriers to employment.
Right.
And so routinely we'll have 5 to 10 applications that have been flagged. And, we'll have to make some tough decisions about, do we want to give a license to somebody so they can put your mother in the car and show property and stand in a house that's vacant after dark when that person has done any number of things?
Right.
Rigorous debate is how I would turn. And we lean heavily on our legal counsel as well. So.
Okay. Do you have a sense of why there's been such a seemingly dramatic drop in license applications?
Yes, I have some ideas. And I can speak as a practitioner since, as your other ANC commissioners have indicated, they have jobs too. Real estate comes in and out of vogue as a profession. And right now, word may be out on the street that it's hard to be successful with interest rates being high and inventory being low and blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't surprise, I've been doing this for 35 years. So it doesn't surprise me to see some kind of ebb and flow.
Okay.
Seasonality, if you will. Um, I don't think we're doing anything wrong in the district.
Okay,
This is something that we've talked about sort of backstage among ourselves.
right.
This is just,
Something to pay attention to, but not necessarily a red flag.
yeah, there's nothing that we're worried about right now.
Okay, okay. And in terms of complaints, what's the general gist of complaints that come in?
Well, I shared some in the pre-hearing questions. We shared some statistics, and let me back up here. The Real Estate Commission in the District of Columbia has a relatively narrow focus. In other states, in other jurisdictions, those real estate commissions are empowered to step in and settle disputes over money, disputes over property condition. Our focus is very narrow, and that is we only look at license law. So we get a lot of complaints, and a lot of them are, in a sense, misdirected. The public, quite understandably, hears real estate, and they bought a bum house, or they're confused about something, and they say, well, the real estate commission is going to fix it. We always take action if we can find a violation of license law, but a lot of the complaints get resolved by other parts of the government.
Okay,
I know that there's a long-running case that we have been in touch with your office about that has resulted in a civil matter. And so the Real Estate Commission, as an example, looked at that and decided, well, we're going to hold our decision in abeyance until we see how the civil matter is resolved. That will inform us if there's any potential violation of license law specifically.
all right. That makes sense. Let me talk about fines for a minute, and specifically for expired license.
You read the answers to the questions.
Yes. Although I'm looking at it, I don't see how many there are. I'm seeing I saw a list, but
Yeah. In the past 12 months, I would say about 50.
okay.
And because we've come through a licensing cycle, people have, a couple of things have happened. Are you asking about the quantity
Yeah, is it?
of what's going on?
Yes. Is that a lot? Is that a high percentage?
It's a lot. Two things are going on. One is that the commission in the past had been sending out reminders on a more faithful basis. Excuse me. The other is that a lot of people admitted that they just spaced out because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the excuses that we heard were the dog ate my homework. COVID came, I got distracted, I just kept doing business.
And is it do people get a warning, or is it just you get a fine? And it actually, before I get there, how does the violation come to the attention of the commission?
When people go online to renew their license,
Okay.
there's a screening question. Have you practiced real estate since your expiration?
Okay.
And people who are going online to renew their licenses have just woken up to the fact that their license expired in 2023.
Right.
And so they have to say yes.
Okay.
God bless them, they're honest,
Yeah.
And so that flags it.
Okay.
And we try to be as sympathetic as possible, but then again, we have an obligation to treat everybody fairly, which means the same. We have had we issue them a consent order and say, you're going to be reprimanded and you have to pay us a fine.
Right.
And sometimes they come back and contest that
Mhm.
and have what we call a conference. And we'll take the time, it's a very time consuming actually, to consider what they're presenting.
Right.
Does it give us reason to reduce the fine?
Okay. One of the things you mentioned in your testimony, and it was in the pre-hearing responses, was priorities, and you wrote that you intended to review the commission's applicable laws and regulations to identify where reforms or revisions are necessary. The LAMP Act, which would regulate property management companies, I've heard nightmare stories of property management companies. I'm sure you hear a lot of this as well, allowing properties to fall into disrepair without accountability. Obviously, that leaves residents in some terrible conditions. Benning Park comes to mind as one that I've been working on recently with my colleague Wendell Felder. What role does the commission believe it should play versus, say, DLCP in regulating property management companies? Or do you believe the commission should play a role?
I think we should regulate them. Is that what you're asking
Yes.
about? Yeah, absolutely, because it breaks our heart. We receive complaints and, it's beyond our jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
This is an ongoing thing, and I think my predecessor, Mr. Pytranton, had spoken to you at length about that.
Yeah.
It's and there are all kinds of little subplots brewing, of course,
Mhm.
too. There's the question of should condo associations that manage themselves be regulated
Mm,
as property managers?
right. Yeah.
It's always been a gray area in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
but as time goes on, it's
Right.
obvious that we just need to bring them under our jurisdiction.
Okay. I need to check with my team and my colleagues on the council on what we need to do to move that bill. It's not in our committee, but it is something I'd like to see move, given what we see and what you all have seen.
Just keep us posted and let us know what we can do.
Absolutely. And I know the bill is not perfect as it is. That's how most bills are, but we've got to kind of figure those question marks out and move forward. Does the commission currently coordinate with DLCP or tenant advocates or others and property owner groups in shaping recommendations on property management oversight? Do you all play any role in that space now?
To my knowledge, not significantly. As a backup, I would ask Mr. Lewis if he's known anything about that. But
Okay.
as a commission that meets month to month, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the continuing education trainings, can you remind me how many the commission did in FY26 and FY25 and FY26?
Oh, yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of
Okay,
me.
don't worry about
Yeah.
it. I think it's in our pre-hearing
but-
questions.
But what you need to know is that everybody's got to do them, every
Yeah.
licensee.
Okay.
So it's pretty extensive. And you mean how many events did the commission?
Yes.
Twice.
Okay.
Twice. Yes.
Perfect.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant exactly how many licensees.
No.
Yeah.
All the ones that are following the rules and paying attention.
Yeah.
How do you determine whether the trainings are generally helpful to folks or reducing common violations? How do you determine if whether or not you need to keep the same trainings or do different ones?
Well, I cannot refer to any sort of empirical data on that. But what I can tell you is that the commission in the past has, seven of the nine of us are on the streets. So we know the pulse. And so the commission in the past has become concerned about certain issues where we've seen complaints or confusion happen. And so we have actually, decided that, for example, license renewal will now require a broker supervision course even for salespeople because salespeople don't know what their broker's supposed to do to supervise them. So it's more from what we know. That's, as subject matter experts on the streets, that's how we would determine. Does that answer your question?
It does. It
Okay.
does.
Yeah. Another thing I'd say is that, I go to events held by the Association for Real Estate Regulators, which is the Association of Real Estate Licensed Law Officials. And we have formal sessions as well as informal sessions. And I'm just amazed I think our training is very good because in the other states, I hear a lot of complaints and incidents from just plain ignorance or stupidity. And I think our education, our continuing education is, pretty superior. And that, the fact that we don't have a lot of complaints related to license violations specifically is a testament to that,
Yeah.
that we're preempting it. So.
Yeah. Newsletters. Are the newsletters going out? Is the
They
commission?
do. Mr. Cyrus has been in charge of them, Mr. Cyrus and Kathy Thomas. Lately, the commissioners themselves do not initiate that.
Okay.
That's handled in the office, if
Okay.
you will.
Do you know how many newsletters the commission has published this fiscal year?
I think one.
Okay.
I think we had one.
One of the other goals is conducting continuing education bank research. What's the scope of the continuing education? What is that? What type of research are you all doing for the continuing education bank?
That's mostly something that goes on among staff.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that we have tried over the past few years to see how successful self-attestation is. And we're coming around to the feeling that we need to go back to a continuing education credit banking system. We had that in place and we tried self-attestation. And I think that we're headed back to a more conventional banking system. If you renew your license in Maryland and you step through the steps and you don't have the credits in the bank, you get a red pop-up that says you need to go do this course before you continue.
Right.
Very 20th century, So I think that's where we're headed.
Okay. And I appreciate the discussion and your testimony around outreach and engagement.
Yeah, I went to this elementary school, the Savoy Elementary
Yeah.
School, and the only problem we had there was that we were competing against the firemen. So, they'd be lined up outside of a classroom door in their gear.
Yes.
And we're talking about title searches. But if we reached one person, that's all we need to do. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Well, I hope you all will keep doing that. The exposure to young people is so important.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you can see it in their faces like, oh, I've never seen a real estate agent before.
All
So
right.
it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Well, Chairperson Downs, I appreciate you being with us. Appreciate all the work that you all are doing. And
Thank you.
those are all the questions I have for you.
Okay, great. And if anything comes up, just let us know because we're here for you.
We certainly
Okay.
will. Same.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Mhm.
much. Right. We will now welcome Andrew Sullivan, Chair of the Board of Real Estate Appraisers. Andrew, I'm not going to make my same mistake twice. I'm going to swear you in before you start your testimony. So welcome. You can sit as fine. If you
Thank you.
raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Housing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks so much. And for the public, we swear in all our government witnesses, at least when I remember to do so. But thanks for being with us. You can begin your testimony.
And thank you for having me this morning. Good morning, Chairperson White and members and staff of the Committee on Housing. My name is Andrew Sullivan, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chairperson of the District of Columbia Board of Real Estate Appraisers. I would like to thank Mayor Bowser for appointing me to the board and for my colleagues in trusting me as chairman. This is my first year serving as chair of this board, and I'm honored to do so. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Mayor Bowser to discuss the opportunities and the accomplishments of the board for fiscal year 2025 and 2026 to date. I would also like to thank the board staff and legal counsel who have done more than a superb job and all they do to facilitate the many activities of the board. The board consists of 4 members, including Tamara Pappas, who is here today, as well as appraiser member Martin Skolick and Anthony Bowling, real estate broker member, and myself, appraiser member. Although the public emergency and public health emergencies have ended, certain operations we implemented during that time have continued and have allowed the board to be more efficient and better meet the needs of the public. Specifically, the board meets remotely via Zoom. This virtual platform provides for greater attendance for the public and appraiser licensees. The board has successfully held all of its scheduled meetings virtually. The DC Board of Real Estate Appraisers continues to be uniquely situated as the only professional licensing board within the Occupational and Professional Licensing Administration that is federally regulated under Title 11 of the Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1989, commonly referred to as FIREA. Accordingly, the board is mandated by Congress to follow FIREA as amended and its accompanying rules and regulations. Additionally, FIREA created the appraisal subcommittee to ensure the federal financial and public policy interests in the real estate transactions are protected by requiring that the real estate appraisals utilized in connection with the federally related transactions are performed in writing in accordance with uniform standards and by individuals whose competency has been demonstrated and whose professional conduct will be subject to effective supervision. In general, the ASC oversees the real estate appraisal regulatory framework as it relates to the federally related transactions as defined in Title 11. The board and staff also participated in training and provided by the Association of Appraiser Regulatory Officials, also known as ARO, entitled Navigating the Appraisal Subcommittee Policy Statements. This training included a review of statutes, regulations, policies, and procedures on governing state appraisal programs, temporary practice, National Registry of Appraisers, application process, reciprocity, education, and state and agency enforcement. During fiscal year 2025, 89 new licenses were issued, and for fiscal year 2026 to date, we have issued 110 new applicants for both years. Licensures in 5 categories were in that included participated in that included trainee, temporary practice, licensed residential, certified residential, and certified general. The appraisal subcommittee conducted an on-site field review and audit of the board and the department's appraiser operations on March 25th to March 27, 2025. As a result of the audit, the District of Columbia Board and Department received the highest rating of excellent by the appraisal subcommittee. The District of Columbia was one of only 9 states to receive such a rating. Real estate appraisals are the result of the evaluation of several complex factors. The nature of the work often means complaints from the public alleging faulty appraisals require an appraiser's expert opinion. To ensure the complaints are thoroughly reviewed in a timely manner, the board hires appraisers on a contract basis to review the complex complaints. This process continues to work well and results in clear, comprehensive complaint summary reports submitted for the board review in a timely manner. The District of Columbia Board of Appraisers continues to be successful in maintaining our membership with ARO. In October 2024, the board staff attended the fall annual conference, which brings together top regulatory officials from around the country and keeps the board abreast of key developments impacting the board's enforcement of federal regulatory requirements. Mr. Lewis, the DLCP program manager, was reelected to the ARO Board of Directors representing the district. The board continues to move forward, expanding its educational offerings through public-private partnerships with numerous local agencies and private organizations. During the fiscal year 2025, the board sponsored 2 in-person historic preservation seminars for licensed appraisers with the DC Preservation League and the DC Real Estate Commission. The board also sponsored a 7-hour Uniform Standards of Professional Practice, also known as USPAP, course during the December of 2025. Additionally, the board approved a final rulemaking establishment of an 8-hour mandatory course for the course entitled Valuation, Bias, Fair Housing Laws and Regulations. That course also will include a 1-hour exam that the licensee must pass. The rulemaking was published as final on July 4, 2025. During the next renewal period, the board will sponsor the 8-hour in-person Valuation, Bias, and Fair Housing Laws and Regulation course for all appraiser licensees. These seminars represent a continuing effort by the board to ensure our licensees are knowledgeable about our historic districts and disclosure requirements, as well as fair housing laws and regulations. We will continue to maintain rigorous and continuing education requirements for our licensees and offer board-sponsored courses for our licensees annually. The board has continued the process of assisting our trainees in making sure their work products and logs are correctly filled out and to help them avoid any rejections by the appraisal board. This is done for the trainee and the supervisor without a penalty and is meant as a learning tool. In fiscal year 2025, the board will continue to work with the Department of Insurance, Security, and Banking on bias in the appraisal process. While the board has not received any complaints nor is aware of any evidence of bias in the appraisal process, we remain vigilant in wanting to ensure equity and fairness in the industry. Additionally, the board will continue its efforts to grow the profession by conducting outreach at local colleges and universities, as well as primary and secondary schools. During the fiscal year 2025, the board participated in the Summer Youth Outreach Program. We look forward to participating in the program in fiscal year 2026 and other outreach events that will allow us to educate diverse audiences about our profession. The board members consider our role a great opportunity to serve the District of Columbia We will continue to carry out the board's many responsibilities, including establishing high standards for licensing, continuing education, investigating consumer complaints, holding bad actors accountable, complying with federal requirements, and engaging with professional regulatory organizations across the nation. The board thanks Mayor Bowers of DCLP and this committee for your leadership and support. We appreciate the opportunity to share our accomplishments and plans for continuous improvements, and look forward to continuing to work with the committee. This concludes my testimony. I welcome any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you for being with us and for your willingness to serve. Let me also thank you and the board for your work and focus on outreach, on valuation bias and bias in appraisals, and working to ensure that those issues are, addressed and prevented here in the District of Columbia. Let me also congratulate you on the excellent rating. Can you, for my education and public education, talk to us about what the appraisal subcommittee state assessment is, and what gets a jurisdiction to that ranking of excellent?
They reviewed the 7 categories that I had mentioned earlier. The overall rating covers the federal compliance in all areas, including statutes, regulations, policies, the procedures. They review the temporary practice. They review our compliance with registry and the National Registry of Appraisers. They review and go over our application process. They will review how we dealt with reciprocity applications to be an appraiser in the district. They review the education program, and also they review our enforcement actions here in the district. As far as the ASC is concerned, each district is referred to as a state, although we're not considered a state in other regards, but maybe one day that will be.
Here's open. Well, congratulations on that. On the licensure, has the board identified any barriers to licensure?
Oh, yes, I'm very much on top of that because it's of interest to me. So as we sit here today, they're looking at the AQB, which is the Appraisals Qualifications Board, in changing these, which I believe is a move in the right direction. Currently, I think we need to be more diverse. We should be open to all walks of life, minorities, all genders, and the way it's set up now, I don't know that that's really put us in that direction. So they're going to have some new changes they are putting out, and I'll be at a meeting with them, which will happen at the Eaton Hotel on K Street next Thursday. The Appraisal Standards Board and the Appraisal Qualifications Board. So I will have an update on that at a later date, but they do want to change. Whenever you bring up change, it isn't always receptive. But in my view, Councilmember White, if you really look at it, the exam is the gatekeeper into our profession, I believe. And, only 50% pass the exam, and it's not easy. So some of these other requirements that are put on top of that, I don't know, we have to ask ourselves, are they absolutely necessary? If we have, and the exam is approximately 8 hours long. And I know people who are extremely bright, and I've asked them, expecting that they only finished in 3 or 4 hours, and the answer was, it took me 7 hours and 55 minutes. So I think if you have the goods to meet that hurdle and you have the knowledge, then you should be given the opportunity for that. So, you have to remember, in the scheme of things, the licensing for appraisers is relatively new. It came out of FIREA in 1989. So these changes are up and coming, and it's really would open up the profession a lot. I think the way I would word it is maybe it's a little too overburdensome as it is now.
Yes.
And we're not making it easier. You still have to, I always say, have at it. If you have the goods to pass the exam, then good for you.
Well, I appreciate that that perspective. I agree. Make the hurdles necessary and necessarily high, but no more difficult than that. And keep a focus on who's getting over the hurdle and who's not, so that you can sort of unpack the barriers that you might not identify. So thank you very much for your work on that. Have you thought about whether there are any metrics the board should be looking at to judge the health and diversity of the appraiser pipeline?
I'm sorry?
Are there any metrics you think the board should look at to judge the health and diversity of the appraiser pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, from looking at that standpoint, again, because it's set on a federal level with these new changes, I'm very confident to say it would skyrocket the opportunity for minorities. Like I say, I just look at it like this. I mean, if someone has a college degree and a master's, and let's say they fail an exam, whether it be the appraisal or a CPA, and another individual may not have the college degree but has worked at a appraisal firm or an accounting firm, but they don't have the degree, and they pass the CPA or they pass the appraisal exam, should they be denied?
Right.
Or who would you choose to pick to do your appraisal or your taxes?
Right.
Yeah. So as you pointed out earlier, are these overly burdensome? Do we really, are these necessary? And I think it would really, as it is now, I'm really a product of what the original licensees created. So, I have 10 brothers, and one of them was an appraiser, and I worked under him as, and that's really where a huge portion it's just from my father, black or white. I talked to another guy, but his uncle, and he trained his 2 nephews.
Yes.
But there has to be another way. There is PREA, which is practical applications to become a real estate appraiser. One's kind of a virtual reality. But the new proposals they have are exciting, I think, and a step in the new direction.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited to see them. What about use PAP violations? Have you received complaints? I guess let's talk about this fiscal year so far, alleging fraud, misrepresentation, or serious violations.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that typically the District of Columbia residents have a high level of education. So let's just start with that. So they will begin to state that they don't agree with the value, but many of them then will point out the areas of deficiency within the appraisal. So they have the knowledge that, I'm not understanding picking a property that's not in my market area, where the appraiser has at the top of the appraisal has defined the market area, but then when I went down to the comps, the first one is 3 miles in the other direction.
Yes.
So they're aware of that. There was an elderly black lady up in Crestwood, and I remember, and I think she was a real estate expert, and she knew everything about everything there was in the neighborhood and what was selling and what wasn't. And I told someone, you're probably best talking to her.
That's right.
So, yeah, as far as that, they disagree with the value, but then we'll point out areas of deficiency.
Okay. So in your consumer protection work, how do you know if the work is succeeding? So you have consumer protection efforts, but how do you know if those are successful?
Well, we don't have a whole lot of complaints, for one, and then I think we get a nice showing at our board-sponsored educational course in USPAP, and you get a sense, the appraisers showed great interest in the education and trying to learn and doing things within the USPAP. So I don't think, because there's very few complaints, the taxpayers of the District of Columbia aren't in outrage over their services rendered to them by appraisers.
Okay. And on educational opportunities for appraisers. So there's I think the 7-hour USPAP course. Is that?
That's the board sponsored we offer for our licensees. I don't know of any other jurisdiction, by the way, in the country that does that.
All right.
So that's, and even the instructor, who's one of the top in the country, as well as taught overseas appraisal practice and theory, he said the same, as he's not aware of anyone doing such a thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And what are the educational opportunities outside of that course?
Well, they have a variety of education providers that the DLCP, Mr. Kevin Cyrus, approves their courses and classes, and he reviews them to make sure they're in compliance.
And the USPAP course, is that in person or is that virtual?
In person.
Okay.
I'm a big proponent of in-person courses.
Yeah.
So some people don't like that, but also I feel like the collaboration between the appraisers. Also, I'll tell any young person this, it's a great place to, you all of a sudden someone says, I'm looking for, in the class, I'm looking for someone wants some work.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people walk away with great job opportunities by attending in-person courses. So.
Sure. Where do those job opportunities come from? Are there like firms that need appraisers, or?
It will be someone from a firm or a lot of appraisal or single individuals, and they're looking for someone, and they'll say in the class, anyone's a trainee, they're interested, please come see me after the course, and
Okay.
you don't get that with the virtual, that kind of collaboration.
Yeah.
I would add that it would be nice, our neighboring jurisdictions at the community colleges within the workforce development schools offer appraisal courses.
Yes.
And it would be nice to see, one thing I want to do this year is go to DC Community College, to see, and it doesn't have to be every single appraisal course, but let's just put it out there as an introduction to appraisal.
Right.
And see what the response, I think you would get a good response. Remember, people also go into this profession, and it's great, say you become an appraiser and then you become a CPA.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, those two together.
That's right.
You're writing your own ticket.
That's right. Interesting. Well, if we can be helpful in that, let us know. Be happy to help.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And the valuation bias and fair housing laws and regulations requirement that's coming. When does that roll out? Or did it roll out already?
Yeah, it's out now, and for renewal license that will be up and coming, we're hoping to offer it in the fall.
Okay.
So you will have to take it for our next period to get your license.
Okay, and that one is required.
Yes, but there is within, and a lot of people forget that within USPAP, there is a non-discrimination section as well that you're to comply with. So is also you're in a big violation of civil rights. So in addition, on the class I'm attending with the foundation coming up next Thursday, it's in collaboration with CARE as the council to advance equity in housing.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Okay. For complaints, investigations, and disciplinary actions, is any of that information available to the public?
I believe under the FOIA, you can get the particulars of that. Yes.
Okay, but not like on a website somewhere, to your knowledge.
I don't know that all the specific information would be aware, like the whole entirety. All complaints are available because under the ASC and also on our, whether you've had a complaint filed against you is on the website.
Okay,
It will list whether you've had that. So that's available to the public. Say you want to review someone and see if they've had a complaint against them or action taken against them. I shouldn't say complaint because some people are innocent and you don't want that to go against them. But if you've had a complaint and you've been suspended or action taken against you, that's available to the public.
okay, excellent. And for board meetings, how do you document and or summarize board meeting work so that consumers, licensees, and policymakers can understand, the complaint trends or enforcement decisions without breaching confidentiality?
Well, we put the agenda out there on the internet, and you can see, the different issues of what we're addressing. And you can find out what we're doing with educationally wise and what we're approving educationally wise, and if we have any sponsored education. And you can see if there's been complaints and the number of complaints. So there's a lot of data for a taxpayer that they can see on the internet.
Okay.
And we also send out probably many times when we're having meetings and so on and so forth. And as you can imagine, or maybe not, I get contacted by appraisal organizations and appraisers know me, and obviously, I'm the last of 13 and I grew up in the city. So a lot of people know me. So they'll just, when I became chair, I called the prior chair and I said, I'm getting a lot of phone calls. She goes, oh, I forgot to tell you that happens. So,
They don't tell you until after you say yes.
But I think it's in a good way. I mean, for example, this DLCP does it, like I said, beyond an outstanding job. And I like, as one attorney I work with at OAG says, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. And, if you got an excellent rating on all those categories, they don't just give that out. So, without their support, we couldn't have gotten, that rating, and that's all the way from the rank and file employees in the trenches, Brittany Chesay, Kevin Cyrus, who handles all the education, Leon Lewis, of course, and he's also on the board at the a national organization. They've selected him as a director, which is really great for the district to have representation like that, and all the way up to Demetrius Norman and our director, who have done, if I have a concern at all, they say, let us know. We can always jump on and do a 10-minute meeting. I mean, that's going to me, we're doing an exceptional above and beyond, because those things come up sometimes where you panic and you need to know an answer. So,
Yeah.
I understand.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing, and your willingness to serve in this role. It does, add work and burden, but it is to the benefit of the city. So I appreciate it. Is there anything the committee can do to help and support the work of the board?
Not at the moment, but I will get back to you. I think it would be of interest to see if we could, at the DC Community College, have an intro to appraisal and see, get these young kids in there and have them have an opportunity to see if they have an interest in the profession.
Perfect. Well, happy to help, and we'll follow up on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being with us. All right, we are going to move to our third government witness for today, Adam Hunter, Chief Administrative Judge of the Rental Housing Commission. We'll swear you both in. Before we begin, if you would raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Housing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks so much. Welcome, and you can begin your testimony.
Yes, and good morning, Chairperson White and members of the Committee on Housing. I am Adam Hunter, Chair and Chief Administrative Judge of the DC Rental Housing Commission. I'm also here with Daniel Mayer, who is the General Counsel for the Commission. Thank you, Chairperson White and Mayor Muriel Bowser, for your continued support of the Commission. I also want to thank the Commission staff for their work in preparing this report for today's oversight hearing, and I am pleased to present the Commission's performance oversight testimony for fiscal years 2025 and 2026 to date. Our small independent agency of 7 full-time employees serves as a specialized intermediate appellate court for housing disputes, determines and publishes the annual rent adjustment for rent stabilized units, and issues regulations implementing the Rental Housing Act. Last month, I appeared before the committee regarding my renomination as chair. And during that hearing, I highlighted several of the commission's accomplishments from FY25. Today, I want to restate some of those achievements and our biggest projects we are undertaking for FY26. In FY25, we reduced the average time to issue decisions to 297 days, surpassing our stated goal of 340 days. We also issued 2 final rulemakings in early October and met our new goal of publishing proposed rules within 90 days of the law's effective date. The Commission also championed access to justice, which included an agency-wide training session, the issuance of 3 plain language guides, and a partnership with the Office of Tenant Advocate. We continue to work with the Office of Human Rights to conduct conflict settlement conferences. The Office of Administrative Hearings is conducting mediation for litigants who want to mediate their cases that are pending before the Commission. For 2 consecutive summers, we hosted law clerks from Howard University School of Law, and this past summer, we hosted an undergrad intern from Lincoln University. We now have a centralized and updated the Commission's internal operating policies, reinstated annual employee performance reviews, and successfully upgraded the Commission's office technology. The major project for FY26, the Commission partnered with Octo to develop a public searchable online case database, and is expected to be completed by the end of the fiscal year and is under budget with minimal recurring costs. So thank you for the opportunity to share these accomplishments, and I appreciate your consideration and any questions that you may have for the Commission.
Thank you very much for being with us. It has not been very long since we were together, considering that your renomination was before us just a couple of weeks ago. All right. So I want to go over key metrics of the agency. Going through the SMART goals. First goal that you all set is to improve the timelines of the appeals process so that average time to issue decisions on appeals does not exceed 340 days. I believe you are on track with 1 decision in this fiscal year, FY26, to date issued in 148 days. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. You reported 3 cases are awaiting decision. Are those also on track to meet the 340-day target?
2 are, 1 is not. 1 is one of those outlier cases that have an extensive history, that had companion cases that go back almost 10 years.
Okay. About how many of those like old legacy cases are there?
We're just down to our last one of
Okay.
those old legacy cases.
Okay, excellent. But for the other two, um, you're on track to meet the 340-day target?
That is correct.
Okay. I think the model, so it makes sense, you had to, set a goal from where you were to, improve.
Yes.
Now that you have reduced the timeline, I believe the model time standard has a 300-day goal. Is that right?
So the model time standard, I believe, was actually more like 390. We had looked at where we are and set ours at 340.
Okay.
But it's based off of all states' appellate standards.
Okay. Do you think that the goal should be kept at 340?
I believe so. What we're looking at internally, we have set some internal goals and metrics internally. I don't think that it's best to put that internal goals publicly because that's some of our deliberative processes within the commission. More along the lines of making sure we're keeping the judges on track with what is happening within the decision-making, the writing process, the deliberation amongst the judges, and coming to consensus.
Okay. I'll push you on that, but not right now. I want to continue to see what we can do together to shrink the timeline, but the agency is right now making progress, and I don't want to trip that up. So appreciate the work that you all are doing. Second SMART goal is to ensure that all new legislation referred to RHC has proposed rules published within 90 days of its effective date. My understanding is that this goal is on track. There was one bill in FY26 to date, which was the Rental Act, does require some rulemaking. RHC anticipates publishing proposed rules for public comment by March 31st. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And one thing I can say about that I'm proud about from the agency perspective is that our legal staff, led by Dan Mayer, is keeping track of all legislation that is coming out of the council. We're tracking to see which ones impact the Rental Housing Act. And because of that, we're able to start work early on it so that by the time it becomes effective, we're able to actually move forward in publishing those updates.
Okay. So do you start before or after the congressional review period?
I'll refer to Dan on that.
Yeah, I'm by the time something hits second reading and we've got pretty final text, we're looking at, okay, how big of a rulemaking project is this likely to be once something is finally voted on, signed by the mayor, tracking on limbs when it goes up to the Hill, what the review period is looking like. Actually, on both the Rental Act and the prior, the one that affected our timelines and a few other things. Limbs kind of retroactively said the date was a couple weeks earlier that the bill became effective. So that was lost a little time there, but we still got it done in about 77 days under our goal for the last one. And I think we'll be there. We have a few edits to make and we'll send off for legal sufficiency review on those Rental Act rules. But since ours is just a small part on that one.
Okay.
Out of all of the provisions in the Rental Act. So
excellent. Okay, so you don't wait until the end of the congressional review period. Right. Okay, and then sometimes the count for the congressional review period is there's a discrepancy between our count and the Hills count. Regardless, it's always way too long. But okay. Who within the agency reviews public comments when they come in?
The entire commission does.
Okay. And how do you determine whether a comment leads to a change in the proposed rule?
that becomes sometimes part of our deliberative process, but there is a lot of discussion that happens amongst the judges and the legal staff within the commission. And sometimes the discussion can be sometimes advice from OAG's office, but more importantly, there's discussions within the commission on that.
Okay. Do you ever hear from members of the public that they have concern that they feel like their comment wasn't taken into account or with the sufficient, gravity or weight?
I have not heard that yet, but that's something that we could try to see if there's any public issue with that process, but we have not.
Okay. I haven't either, to my knowledge. So I don't intend to send you on a fishing expedition. Just want to test those waters. So there are some metrics that the agency tracks on your own work, such as case mediation, utilization, timelines for each step of the case process, and public comments on rulemakings. Those metrics are based on industry benchmarks known as model time standards. What internal controls or monitors have proven most effective at getting and keeping timelines down without sacrificing the quality of legal work or legal reasoning?
One thing that has been helpful is that our clerk of the court keeps a conspicuous, really detailed look at all of our timelines. We also have some internal time stamps that end up coming through when we reach certain benchmarks throughout the period. The one thing that's been really good in terms of speeding the process up has been working with OAH on the mediation, because they have an entire staff of both judges and attorneys that can mediate cases very soon. Before, historically, we were having a slowdown in the process because we were waiting on the record to come from OAH before the mediation process started. But because OAH is the ones mediating the case, and they also have extensive knowledge of housing laws and regulations, they're able to get to the mediation process a lot sooner. And so it's been very helpful in that process. So that time period is pretty short. It's gotten shorter. And then the other part is that OAH has gotten better at getting us the record in a faster time period as well. Mm-hmm. So something on their end is being done well that does not hold up our process on our end in order to set hearing dates and get cases moving along a lot faster.
Okay. And for pro se litigants, this is something we talk about from time to time. I know you have done some work around plain language around the appeals process and other processes. Are there other resources that you think the commission needs to focus on to help pro se litigants?
One of the things, I think the plain language documents are helpful, providing more guidance. Working with OTA is helpful. One of the things I think we could consider doing more of is seeing what other tenant resources are there to represent some of those pro se litigants. They're usually on the tenant side, not so much on the housing provider side. There are plenty of organizations that do tenant litigation, like Legal Aid and Rising for Justice, Bread for the City do a lot of litigation on behalf of tenants. For pro se housing providers, that has actually become very hard to kind of figure out where to match and get help with for pro se housing providers. And we do have a couple of pro se housing providers that do come before us. There is one legal services organization that does provide almost like a low bono to housing providers. So getting some of those individuals connected to that is sometimes can be harder to do. The best we could possibly do from a judicial perspective is put out all the resources and hopefully would be helpful in connecting them with the information. I don't know, and I think we probably need to do a little more research into how much the Landlord Tenant Resource Center in DC Superior Court helps assist on a lot of the administrative proceedings. They're able to help a lot of times with things that are coming before the DC Superior Court on like eviction matters. But there we need just some more research on whether or not they actually can assist and help on administrative proceedings as well.
Okay. And you mentioned that aspect of the Superior Court. Are there peer commissions or boards in other states that that you would compare yourself to that have practices or processes that are different than ours here?
In terms of the Rental Housing Commission?
Yeah.
That I have not been able to identify. I think New York may be the closest comparison to possibly having something close to the Rental Housing Commission, but not to my knowledge.
Okay. And now I've heard from those who believe that RHC should be reintegrated back into DHCD. What unique value does independence provide for the commission?
And I think we've even had that discussion the last time I appeared before you. There is a need for independence in terms of our decision making, the same way that OAH has their own independence separate and apart from the decision making. The reintegration would be, and I don't know where Chairman White you're thinking of the reintegration back into DHCD or not, but the work that DHC does is definitely separate and apart and different from their mission and goals that the Rental Housing Commission has.
Okay. And on mediation, how frequently do cases resolve through mediation?
I think there was, I don't have the exact number. There was, I think we had 3 cases currently in mediation, one that did settle recently. I tried not to add any value proposition on whether or not if a case settles or does not settle, that it's the success of mediation or not the success of mediation. To me, every case is different. Why a party decides that they want to settle a matter, I think it's good that parties get an opportunity. I think it gets them to more opportunities for final resolutions of not just the case that's before the commission, but it could also resolve cases that are before Superior Court, either in a civil case or an eviction matter. So I try not to give any value proposition on cases that settle and cases that come back to us.
What was the last part?
Or cases that end up coming to us because they do not end up settling through mediation.
Let me move to the scope of the agency's work. Last year, we explored whether RHC could take on some of the eviction cases to help relieve what is a significant backlog there. And one of the reasons we didn't pursue this was that moving cases to RHC would require defendants to waive their rights to a jury trial. Even still, I'm still looking for ways within our power to address the court backlog, given that we can't control the judicial appointments and there are a lot of vacancies in Superior Court. Are there non-eviction cases that RHC could consider taking on where waiving a jury trial is of less concern? Is there any subset of eviction cases that it would make sense to look at?
That are non-eviction?
No, any subset of eviction cases where waiving a jury trial is of less concern? Is there any subset of eviction cases that we should even be considering moving to the jurisdiction of RHC?
Honestly, I'm kind of thinking back because I had represented both landlords and tenants throughout my litigation career. It's hard to say. To me, the easiest one is non-payment of rent, possibly. But within non-payment of rent cases, you have a multitude of defenses that could be asserted, which could take us down a bunch of different roads. Maybe even a more straightforward one is an example of where the tenant has already given the landlord notice. So it's a non-redeemable judgment. It's not an issue of that the case could be, or the tenancy could be redeemed. That is just a more of a matter of fact situation. So that situation I could possibly see as one, or even one where there is no issue of tenancy. So, some people may call it squatters' rights type cases, even though I would never legally call anything squatters' right in DC because that's just not something that we necessarily have. But that's one case I could see, someone who does not have a tenancy at the time, but have to go through the landlord-tenant case.
Okay. I'd like to continue working with you to brainstorm potential opportunities there, because there is a big problem that the city has that we collectively have got to figure out. Based on the appeals you've reviewed in the past, let's say, 2 years, are there any recurring themes or patterns that have emerged that point to broader challenges in DC's rental housing market?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. No, but I will go back and talk to the other commissioners or administrative judges and the staff to see, and if we can find some trends, we'll definitely report back.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the access to justice work that you all have been doing, what initiatives are planned for this fiscal year to expand that work?
One is to continue to produce more plain language documents. One of the things that we have to recognize as a judicial body, and this is just across all judicial bodies, is understanding that the words that we use as trained attorneys, that these words are very technical and very hard to understand. I will say that, and probably go back to your last question, one of the questions that have come up has been around bad faith and retaliation. And when we start to go through those definitions, they become very complicated. We're trying to toe the line between giving legal advice, but there is a need to lay out what it is that parties have to actually prove in order to show bad faith versus retaliation, and what exactly are what you're entitled to at the end. Because when parties that are pro se come before us and they're starting to argue some of these technical definitions, sometimes they don't always know exactly, the standard you must show, who has the burden, and what must be shown. So sometimes taking some of those very complex legal issues that may come before us and trying to place that in a way that is easy for individuals to understand. Because otherwise, the only way you get understanding of it is you have to go into the case law and read the case law, not just from us, but also from the Court of Appeals as well. And when you have read case law, it can be very complicated for those that are not legally trained.
Okay. Do you have what specific like, plain language documents is the commission working on this fiscal year?
So one that's just was put out was the one on mediation and the mediation process. We're still working on developing others. Again, the one that I just mentioned about bad faith. But we're still trying to evaluate to see what other things could be placed out that could help people understand our process. And I would note too that I thought was, and this was a good suggestion that came from the legal staff, that we published around becoming a landlord. Now, although the becoming a landlord document that we published as plain language is not necessarily what we do as appellate judges, but one thing that we were recognizing, the lack of understanding of the Rental Housing Act, that landlords are needing proper guidance. Sometimes there's a feeling that the rules around becoming a landlord seems to be complicated, and that there's more than just two steps. And there are a lot of people who want to become housing providers somehow think that if I just put my house on the market and I ask for rent, that's enough, but that's not. And so we try to do our best to try to give as much guidance to individuals, because not being registered properly can be problematic when eventually you get to the appellate stage, both when you're trying to litigate an OAH or you come before us and you're not properly registered. So we were trying to give some good advice, both long form and short form, and hopefully helping people to understand what those rights are.
Okay. Do you partner with any other agencies in doing that?
So yes, I know on the mediation, because we do mediation with OAH, we'd work with them to show them the document to say, look at this, make sure that we're addressing it. We do have a work relationship with RAD, the rent administrator, because that's also the items that we get come essentially from the rent administrator's office. But we can definitely continue to expand. I would also note that one of our judges does sit or participate in the Access to Justice Commission.
Okay.
And so we're really trying to hold true to our responsibility to make ourselves accessible.
Excellent. The last thing I would just ask, in pre-hearing questions, we always ask agencies to provide us with legislative recommendations and encourage agencies to come to us with solutions. Historically, I don't think we've gotten feedback from RHC on this, and I want to make sure we're doing everything we can to support your work, the effectiveness and efficiency of the agency. So, please continue to look for ways that we can support your work and partner with you.
Yes, we'll do that.
Those are all the questions I have. I want to thank you both for being with us today, and thanks to you and your colleagues for the work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Before we bring up our final agency, I'm going to take just a 5-minute recess. And so the time is 12:12, and we will resume at or before 12:20. Let's just say 12:20. We are in a brief recess. All right, we are resumed. I want to welcome up Director Kent Bates of the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions. And we'll ask you to raise your right hand as we swear in our government witnesses. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Housing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And you can begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson White. My name is Kent Bates, and I am the Director of the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions. With me today is Denise Wichter, our General Counsel. It is our pleasure to be here today to engage with the committee, share updates on the smart investments the OANC has and is continuing to make to better support our advisory neighborhood commissions, and report on how we are investing in our staff to improve services and more effectively deliver on our statutory mission to provide technical, administrative, and financial reporting assistance to ANCs. Within this framework, I must provide the context that the OANC does not have supervisory, disciplinary, or regulatory authority when it comes to ANCs. We understand that many in the district either conflate the roles and duties of the ANCs and OANC, or believe that we are a regulatory agency. We are not. Equally important is that advisory neighborhood commissions are independent, deliberative bodies. In preparing this year's answers to the committee's pre-hearing questions, this understanding needs to be acknowledged for us to have a constructive conversation on the concerns that the committee has recently raised. We believe that the committee, as well as the Council of the District of Columbia as a whole, must explore a fundamental question before it can chart a course to address its concerns. Are ANCs to remain independent bodies, or does the committee believe that the independent nature that ANCs have enjoyed for 50 years must end? Keeping this question in mind during this hearing will help frame the conversation. The committee has stressed in the past that performance oversight hearings are more than just how an agency meets its statutory obligations. District agencies must also deliver value to the residents of the district, especially as the funding that supports us is their money. We agree, and we believe being good stewards of the public's resources is not just good policy, but a cornerstone of trust. To that end, the OANC takes its fiduciary responsibilities seriously. We invest in developing our staff, in technological solutions that will improve service at a lower cost per commission than what the ANCs now pay, and in improving access to public records. We also review the quarterly financial reports for all 46 ANCs, and when we find expenditures that are non-compliant with legal requirements, we withhold public money from release. Where these lapses are serious, we make requests to agencies such as the Office of the DC Auditor to audit ANC accounts and determine if misuse of funds has occurred. And we make recommendations for corrective actions to agencies, including the Office of the Attorney General. We note that the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities, under your leadership, made significant investments in FY21 and FY22 to the OANC for expanded services and staff positions. And we increased the annual allotments for all ANCs. The OANC appreciates these investments and the solid foundation that they established for our current success. The funds supporting ANCs and the OANC have been flat, however, since FY23. The OANC has not requested, nor has the Committee on Housing offered, any increase in funding in the past 3 years, as the OANC has been able to improve operations and expand ANC services within our current spending levels. While the OANC has not been confronted with any spending shortfalls under my leadership, that doesn't mean that we are without challenges. This year, I learned that my staff does not receive cost of living increases as part of either the executive branch or legislative branch approvals of COLAs. Our staff are talented and must be fairly compensated, especially in light of the fact that there is no room for grade increase or promotion in our positions. More notably, The non-lapsing funds established by the Committee on Government Operations for the OANC require dedicated management in order for the OANC to actually receive them. During the transition from FY23 to FY24, we learned that the mayor's office had not released the non-lapsing funds to the OANC. We made the Committee on Housing aware of this issue, and the committee at that time chose to reprogram 6 months of unused OANC salary money to cover the gap. Last year, during the transition from FY24 to 25, we again found that the mayor's office was not transferring the funds. I chose to engage with the mayor's office directly rather than going through the committee, and in so doing, confirmed that mayor's orders and spending restrictions do not apply to legislative branch agencies. This meaningful engagement led to OANC successfully getting the funds released in May of 2025. With this experience, I again noticed that the release of non-lapsing funds had not occurred at the beginning of this month. Again, I have engaged directly and have already successfully been able to get those funds released and into our accounts. Access to these funds is critical, as they notably pay for ANC technical assistance funds, the ANC website project, and the development of the new QFR portal project, to highlight 3 significant areas that cannot move forward without timely funding. In a related area, last year in the FY26 Budget Support Act, the committee had included a provision that, in the assistance of locating appropriate office space for a commission, the mayor shall make funds up to $600 per month available to ANCs to cover the rental of such office space if district-owned or leased office space cannot be provided to the respective ANC. DGS has recently informed us, however, that the provision that this committee put into the law, the change that you did, which we are grateful for, that the provision is subject to appropriations and that they are not aware of any money at this time budgeted in DGS for this purpose in FY26. And that this will therefore need to be included in DGS's FY27 budget by the council. We just wanted to draw your attention to this matter because we think it is important and that it would have significantly assisted some ANCs in this regard. If there is anything you can do to help us facilitate these funds, we and the respective ANCs would greatly appreciate it. As previously mentioned, the Committee on Government Operations made significant investments in expanding ANC services and staffing of the OANC in FY21 and FY22. Within the framework of our existing statutory duties, these positions were created. However, much of the work these investments supported remained undone when I was hired at the beginning of FY23. I inherited 3 open positions and a host of unfulfilled committee expectations. I have worked diligently to exceed expectations, fill positions, and improve performance. To do this, over the past 3 years, I have examined our internal operations, our workflows, and compliance with statutory requirements. This has resulted in writing standalone policies along the way. I have reviewed staff vacancies as opportunities to examine the skills of the office and revise those positions in order to get the talent we need to succeed. As a result, we now have a chief of staff and are actively recruiting a business operations specialist who will provide much needed additional support for reviewing ANC quarterly financial reports. For FY25, I inaugurated the formal performance management and review process for all staff. This allows us to measure performance over time, track progress, identify success, and help staff achieve their full potential. Informally, we have also invested in professional development. While all staff have taken training this year, the following 3 achievements are noteworthy. Taylor Woods, our new chief of staff, successfully achieved 2 certifications in project management. Don Dickerson, who primarily works on quarterly financial reports, has taken courses and began the process to obtain the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners certification. And Andrew Gerst, who was our land use attorney, had the bandwidth to become a registered parliamentarian at the beginning of this fiscal year. Also under my leadership, the OANC continues to collaborate with Octo to deliver individual websites to each of the ANCs is on the cusp of launching our first sites. These websites will contain both global content that the OANC will manage for all sites, as well as areas that will be completely controlled by each ANC. I've also approved the project with Octo to develop our next generation QFR portal. The new portal incorporates many lessons learned from our current portal, addresses points of pain, corrects functional issues, and will give us better reporting capabilities. I expect a significantly improved product that would not have been possible but for my Chief of Staff's strong project management skills. He has been instrumental in keeping us on track and focused. What is important to understand here is that the OANC is not resting on its laurels. We understand that the needs of the commissioners change. We also understand that we have much work yet to do. The OANC, despite being over 25 years old, has never had a consolidated and publicly available policies or procedure manual. And this is a high priority for us. We have also engaged with the Office of the Inspector General as an unbiased third party to review our operations and help us identify where we need to focus to ensure that our fiduciary responsibilities to every resident of the District of Columbia is met to the highest possible standards. While our engagement with OIG is ongoing, the high-level takeaways from our conversations with OIG at present are, number one, the OANC needs comprehensive written policies and procedures. Two, the tone at the top is excellent. We proactively requested the OIG Internal Control Assessment Program review of our internal QFR controls. And to date, we are the only district agency to enter into an MOU with OIG to engage in this process. Third, the OANC QFR analyst conducts reviews of supporting documents to check that financial tractions are accurate, complete, and properly supported. And fourth, OANC is proactive in working with ANCs to identify and avoid unallowable grant awards and expenditures prior to awards being made. While the committee has indicated that the primary focus of today's discussion will focus on recently published ANC audits from the DC auditor, rest assured that the OANC does not wait for audit recommendations to change course, improve our processes, or develop staff. The OIG is looking at the OANC's current practices, not the practices or events that were 2 to 4 years in the past. Having this third-party neutral collaboration is invaluable for the OANC. It provides additional checks and balances that will inform us in the future on whether or not we are making progress in improving our internal controls and processes as they relate to QFR review. In closing, the OANC is in a strong position. We have strong and talented leadership and staff. We continue to improve both our internal processes and deliver on improved services and technical support to ANCs. We clearly know where we are. We know where we need to go, and we are nimbly trying to address the needs of the ever-changing ANCs, and that is from our daily calls that we get. So I thank the committee for this I thank the committee for this continued support of the ANCs and the OANC. I'm happy to discuss any of the information OANC submitted prior to this hearing, as well as answer any questions you may have that have arisen from the testimony today. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Director Bass. Before we get into the substance, I want to briefly address correspondence leading up to this hearing last night. Preparing for this hearing, I re-reviewed your letter objecting to the pre-hearing questions, your response to my Chief of Staff, and your responses to the questions. And I was overwhelmed by the petty condescension, insult, and disrespect. Your notion that I don't understand the jurisdiction of my committee, your notion that I don't understand the statute that created the office of the ANC, and your notion that I don't understand how to do oversight are mistaken. And I want to make that very clear. I'm not going to do a back and forth of things like this. I want to also make clear that when my Chief of Staff and committee staff reach out on my behalf, they speak for me and should not be dismissed or have a refusal to engage with. It is my intention for us to work together. There is a reason I've grown this agency. It is not to benefit me. It is not to benefit the OANC. It is to benefit ANC commissioners. And I'm happy to have conversations about how we better serve commissioners, but I'm not going to go into a back and forth, and I'm not going to be disrespected. So I hope that we can figure it out and work together with a forward-looking vision.
I'm sure we can.
For the record, can you explain how you understand OANC's role, where you see the office as purely advisory and where you see clear authority, particularly around ANC finances in QFRs and allotments?
Absolutely. Let me start with where I believe we have more than an advisory role. With quarterly financial reports, which have an intersection with funds, while there is an OAG opinion that questions whether or not we have that authority, what makes it work is we make recommendations to OFRM. They ultimately make the decision to release the funds. So we are operating within our authority. We believe we are operating within the law. We have a responsibility to review receipts. We have a responsibility to make sure that all of the public's money that is entrusted to the ANCs is spent appropriately. Where we see that funds have not been spent appropriately or where there's no supporting documentation, we recommend that funds be withheld. That is what is required of the statute. And we see a responsibility to provide training to the treasurers and others within the commission, significantly chair people, so that we can ensure that they have the tools they need and we can answer the questions they may have as they're doing this work. I also believe we have authority with our technical assistance mandate to lean into shared services. So that's why we're leaning into the websites. That's why we're leaning into a new QFR portal. If there are other areas of technology that we can lean into, we will. One significant thing we did this year, again, we did not have the bandwidth to provide or the funding to purchase 46 different hybrid kits of the very large kits and send them around. Like I said, we did not have the bandwidth to provide staff for the commissions. So what we did this year, we pivoted. We found a much smaller solution, one that is easier to use. Is the quality as good as the large kits? No, but it's more than adequate for an ANC meeting. What we did is using the Technical Assistance Fund, we reached out to all of the ANCs to make sure that they knew that for this purpose, as you may recall from years past, we have used the Technical Assistance Fund as an assistance fund. Like there has to be financial needs. Some commissions have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. And I'm really concerned that that be depleted by well-funded ANCs at the detriment of those that have real need. But this year, with regards to the mini hybrid kits, we told all ANCs that we would provide reimbursement funding for any that wanted that kit. We see that as a core service. Many commissions have taken us up on that. A few of them haven't. Part of that is because some commissions only meet quarterly and they don't really know how to store it. So in addition to making funding available to all commissions to purchase those kits, we purchased 2 that we keep in the office and we make them available for loan. It's a good opportunity if someone's thinking about buying the kit, but they don't know if they really want to, invest that kind of funding, even though it's reimbursed. They can take one out, they can try it, they can see how easy it is, and then they can make the decision to purchase that kit. Where we don't have authority and where it's difficult, as I mentioned, we don't have regulatory authority. We don't have supervisory authority. So training is a good place to go. The statute requires us to provide training, and we do. The statute requires commissioners to take training. They don't all take training. We have nothing in our wheelhouse that can compel them to take training. There's nothing that we can't withhold funding from a commission because not all the commissioners have taken training. And I don't even know if we want to do that, but like there's nothing. And I think another thing that came up in some of the pre-hearing testimony, I think it was Commissioner Patel talking about commissioners and engaging with each other. There have been a number of issues over the years where the issue that's been brought to our attention very clearly seems like it's a BEGA issue, but BEGA doesn't provide service. They just feel that ANCs are not within their purview. So anything that we could do to work with the committee on maybe strengthening or seeing where that authority is, we think that agencies that already exist that do this for other branches of government should do it for ANCs. Like some of it is oversight, but some of it also is a service.
So on this issue, what the commissioner yesterday called me about and referred to as hostility. If a commissioner feels like there's so much hostility, they don't know if they can continue doing the work, and they turn to OANC. What's the recommendation to them?
Honestly, we don't have much we can tell them. We can tell them to reach out to BEGA for advice. I think the strongest thing we can do if there's hostility in the commission, and I've given this advice to Commissioner Patel as well, is I find that commissions that are well operating and commissioners seem to be collegial maybe don't need to be so rigid with parliamentary procedure. But commissions where there's a lot of dysfunction could really benefit from structure. And so that's one of the reasons why we invested in Andrew Gierst getting to be a registered parliamentarian. He's already sat down with one commission to go over some of the frictions they were having with regards to just basic motions and when people refuse to cede the floor. And he's like, again, it's going to be predicated on them following the rules, but we want them to understand what the rules are, because that is a legal framework that applies to ANCs by statute.
What about the treasurer role? One of the commissioners testified that 53% of commissions are late on QFRs. I can't recall if that's accurate, but it tends to be a lot. How should we be looking at that?
Well, from the testimony I heard earlier, I do agree, and it might have been Commissioner Bishop Henchman. He might not have mentioned the 53%, but he is correct that there is a process. The quarter closes, we need the quarterly report. It does need to be signed by 3 officers. We do need the completed minutes. They have to be the final minutes. But how should we view that? I don't know. We had, at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of January, and maybe this is a back way to get into it, you may recall, and I think this was something that you put in statute, that a commission that has more than 2 untimely QFRs we're supposed to withhold their money. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of January, I looked to see where we are, and we had 5 ANCs that were missing 2 reports. And if we don't get their report in February, they'll have missed more than 2. We have reached out to we had 7. We've reached out to all of them. 5 of them are now in compliance. In some cases, it was a misunderstanding. They thought they had submitted it, but we didn't have all the signatures. We've corrected that. Okay. We're still waiting on 3. Now, we have reached out multiple times. We will continue to reach out. We do everything we can to make it easy for them as possible. Over the last year, one of the concerns or the problems was electronic signatures. All the commissions now have box accounts. It makes it easy for them to sign electronically, but then there becomes a training component, right? So I guess my point to the story is we're constantly monitoring how long it takes them to get in, and we engage. We try to see if it's a training issue. If so, we do that. We try to see if they and I would say in the case of ANC 8D, and I don't know off the top of my hand if they fall into this category, but they've been having trouble getting quorum for quite some months. And so they were supposed to have a meeting earlier this month and didn't have quorum. And that's the meeting where they were going to approve their QFRs. So, is that a financial issue? No, but it is impacting the filing of the reports.
Okay. So at this point, there are only 2 commissions that have not submitted their QFR?
Well, no, what I said was that I think we have 3 commissions that have not submitted the last 2.
Okay.
And then would be at risk in February, which is February 15th is the next date. We are going to continue to, pardon me, pester them to try to get them in. The recourse we're supposed to take when they fall into that category is we're supposed to take their checkbook and debit card. That is not something I ever want to do. I will do it, but it's disruptive of their operations. Right? It's a pain for them and us. So I would prefer just to get them caught up. I would also say too, one thing that's maybe helpful to this question is you may recall, like last year and I think the year before, I've testified that we can't control when they give us the report, but what we can control and what I have established is a schedule for when we give them their allotment memos, telling them what's being released and what's not. In FY24, when I first inaugurated that schedule, only 33 of our reports had gone out on the timeline that I want, and that was only 17.9%. This year, 150 of our release memos went out on time, and that was up to 81%. And so I think we're going to continue to see improvement. But when a commission, and we send these now to the chair and the treasurer, when a commission gets the memo and they see that they're not getting their full allotment and the allotment memos clearly specify what we need, and sometimes it's a missing receipt, which is much easier to do, we actually see a stronger response, which is why I want to get them the memos as early as we can, because this is actionable data that they know what we're looking for versus an email where they don't understand.
Right. Is there, so OANC has over the past several years centralized some aspects, some services aspects of the ANC role. Is there a reason not to look to centralize some of the financial reporting to lessen the burden on commissioners?
It gets back to what I said at the beginning of my statement is we might need to consider, are they going to remain independent or not? To centralize some of those services, if we do that within the government bubble, they may, in some situations, ANCs will lose the flexibility of what they can spend their money on that they have now. For example, several ANCs, I know 3D, 3A, I think 4E is investigating it. They've entered into a Go Vocal contract, which is a communication tool that they really like. It's not something we can purchase. Based on the way the licensing is set up, there are restrictions that would prevent our office from purchasing it. If the ANC spending were brought into a centralized, government, they would lose the opportunity to spend money on something like that, or they'd have to find an alternative. And it has to do with restrictions within how the district spends its money. As you may recall, a lot of ANCs are not held to all of the same requirements that the district is held to. Like they do not have to meet DSLBD requirements. They do not need to meet OCP requirements. So they have a lot more flexibility in how they spend their money. The goal is that their money is spent to serve their community. If they were brought into like an OFRM or some kind of system that way, not only would they lose some of that ability, they might, and I would just caution that we'd want to look at this closely, they might be subject to the mayor's sweeps every year too, which I'm not sure that's good for them either.
Right.
So, one thing that would be worth looking at, and maybe this would help a little bit, I believe Commissioner Bishop Henchman said that, based on their budget, they don't have the budget to hire a CPA or an accountant. And yet that is what the money's for. But if it were possible to maybe enter into a central contract with a with outside of the government bubble, maybe negotiate a master contract where each commission could then enter into the contract and dedicate some of their funding to that as a shared service. It's something we could explore, but I'm not sure it's something that we could manage through our office, because then it might trigger some of those spending restraints.
Okay. All right, well, we'll continue to talk through that to see how we can support treasurers. That's a particular role that I hear about all the time, the difficulty. Want to talk through SMART goals. I know OANC is currently revising its goals, but you did submit some draft goals, so I want to go through those. The first is to publish KPIs and a reporting cadence for the quarterly financial report timelines, which is ongoing. And I think you were just speaking to this. What would those timelines look like? What would the cadence look like for that?
For clarification, with regards to our annual reports or the allotment memos?
The QFRs.
Oh, the QFRs?
Yeah.
Well, the cadence for quarterly financial reports, for example, quarter one is due to us on February 15th, quarter two is due on May 15th, quarter three is due on August 15th, and quarter four is due on November 15th. Our cadence for release memos are essentially, 3 months after that. So once a quarter closes, an ANC gets about 3 months to send things in. And it's because they need to circulate it for signatures, they need meeting minutes, they need time to get the receipts in order. So we give them until the next quarter is due. We want to get our memo out to them by May 15th, which is the next quarter is due. So they're working on the next one, and we're telling them what we need. If we can beat that deadline, that's great. Like, the sooner we can get them out, the better. And that's why when Leonard Barnum left earlier, we recrafted that position to give Dawn Dickerson the help she really needs so that we can improve that turnaround, right? But that's our cadence. We want to get our memos out quarterly, and we get them out with giving the ANC enough time to work, right? We don't want to send out a memo saying, you haven't given us all this information when they haven't even had time to send it in.
Right.
That's unfair.
So the next one is, you said February 15th?
February 15th is when the quarter one reports are due.
Okay.
And that would be FY26 quarter one.
Okay. And so what have or will you send ahead of the February 15th deadline?
Right now, Dawn is working on the deadlines for the FY25 Q1 and Q3 and Q4 reports. So ideally, she's working on quarter four. We have some FY25 quarter three reports that had not come in until recently. So she's working through those. She was working through quarter four. And the reason it's important to talk about this relationship is, like, the quarter three report releases the first quarter allotment. So there's a 6-month gap, if that makes sense.
So
It's hard.
all right. So does OANC send out a reminder, hey, reminder reports are due February 15th?
I would have to double check with Dawn to see when she sends them out. I know we do send them out. We've published them in our handbook. We include them in our training. Right now, we have treasurers that are being elected or reelected. As we onboard new treasurers, that all those requirements are there. They're in the financial policies and procedures. So there are multiple touch points, and the dates aren't just kept to ourselves. We do want them to turn them in time. And Dawn does a pretty good job, actually. I'm going to rephrase that. Dawn does an excellent job of keeping the treasurers informed of their deadlines.
Okay. And as I understand your previous responses, in terms of the most recently due QFRs, almost all of those are turned in, the ones that were due, the last ones that were due. Is that right?
I believe all but 3
Okay.
of the Q3 reports have been turned in,
Okay.
right? And that's important because that's releasing FY '26 Q1 allotment money.
Okay. Want to talk a bit about commissioner training. Have you implemented the Absorb learning management system already, or is that something that's upcoming?
No, it was implemented in the fall. We've seen about 15 people start to use it. We certainly want to drive it home.
Mhm.
There was some confusion when it went out because all the commissioners immediately got an email to register. You have to register for the system, and they weren't quite sure why they were getting that. So we again had to remessage what they were getting, why they were getting it, that it's not spam, it's a secure system. I think it will help. It's not going to replace one-to-one training. It's not going to replace in training or in-person boot camps. But I think it's an excellent source. And if there were some trainings that the committee felt were essential and required, if you could think of some penalties for not taking them or some kind of remediation for not taking them, having those in the system so that we can track how many people have actually taken and completed the course. What we liked about Absorb is that it's not just watching a video on YouTube. It can build in quizzes along the way to help you retain the knowledge. And it can give you a certificate of completion when you get to the end that say, hey, 95% of your questions at the end test were accurate.
Okay.
So that in itself is invaluable because where people are missing questions, we can either see if the question was crafted poorly
Mhm.
or if it's an opportunity for greater engagement.
Okay. For those and for the ethics trainings, yeah, I want to look at what the consequences are for council members, because we have several trainings that are required and we get notices and the secretary's office harasses us where necessary. I'm sure something happens if we don't get them. So I have to find out what that is because to your point, if there are no consequences, my guess is you're going to see an increasing number of people not doing various trainings.
Well, and to support what you've just said, we've also seen instances where a commissioner who has pushed the envelope on a couple of things, and they know that they've been their behavior has been reported to BEGA by a constituent, for example. When they see that there's no penalty, no one does anything, they stop listening altogether.
Mhm.
It's almost like it encourages them to just ignore the rules they don't like. And
Mhm.
so, to your point, there should be accountability, and I completely agree that it should have parity with any other elected official in the district.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, can you help me understand what I know about the Absorb learning management system, but what is it exactly? Is it like is it a website that they go on with on-demand trainings?
Yeah, it's a platform much like I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that every council member and council staff here are required to take an ethics course every year,
Yeah.
and or the an IT training for cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
It's the experience to the user is very much like that. A link will come to you, or you can go to the link that we provide and where all the training courses are. You will take the course. It will ask you a series of questions. It can incorporate short videos. You could pause it and come back to it. It's essentially that. It's
Okay.
just an internal platform where you can do this kind of robust training. I know that you've been asking for us to deliver on that for a number of years. And I think we finally have. What we've been able to do until recently is just have recordings on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice to watch, but it's not really training.
Right. Does the system track either for OANC or for individual commissioners how many trainings or modules they've done?
Yeah, every commissioner is in there as an individual based on their government issued email address. So it will record how many commissioners have participated. You can easily tell who they were, even if the names aren't in there, the emails would be, and that's easy to cross-reference. It will tell you what's been completed, how many they've taken. Yeah, it tracks.
Okay. And if a commissioner joins midterm, how do they learn about the various trainings and training opportunities?
Well, when a commissioner joins midterm, they actually go through a series of steps, right? It's not just here's your email, go with God. We set them up with email. Depending upon what they're doing, we will let them know about the training resources. We will tell them where important documents on the website are located. Again, if they're a new commissioner and then for some reason they get elected to an officer position, we will then also do additional touch points to make sure that they know what the rules are there. When they come into our office, we give every new commissioner a copy of Robert's Rules, and we have two versions. We have the full-fledged Robert's Rules, which is a little daunting for some, and then we have Robert's Rules in brief, which is far more digestible for many. We give them contact information for our trainer, who is Eric Meltzer. But yeah, we go down a list of these are all the things someone newly entered into their role. Like, these are the things we need to deliver. These are the things we need to connect them to.
Okay. And just so people know, there's a protest happening outside. So you hear the applause and noise, that's what it is. Security says it's under control though, so no need to worry. The third SMART goal is technology modernization and specifically deploying a new QFR portal with Octo and evaluating enterprise license opportunities for commonly used services. So you've done this for Zoom Enterprise and have an operational, as you mentioned, hybrid meeting equipment loan program. Are there times where commissions need the hybrid equipment and they can't use it because other commissions are using it at the same time?
No, we are a little concerned about that. We have never encountered that problem thus far, but we have had both of our hybrid meeting kits that we have in the office in use at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to purchase a third to make sure that that scenario never happens. We don't want any commission to ever be turned away due to lack of technology support.
Okay.
And I guess this would be a good place too, that while we've migrated most of them to this smaller solution, we value the investment in the initial 8. They're very robust. And the other message that we give the commissions, as well as if they are having a very large community meeting, say there's a large PUD, say the mayor has decided to go out and talk to the community and they know that they're going to get 200, 300 people, the small kit won't adequately serve that, but we do have the big kits in reserve and we will work with them to deploy that at that time.
Okay.
Right. We want scalability.
Right. Okay. What other commonly used services are you evaluating for enterprise licensing or other centralization?
Well, the big 2 that are on the horizon, which I've mentioned, I had hoped that we would have some websites for the commissions by mid-December. That got delayed a little bit by the budget kerfuffle last year, but we appear to have very close to deploying an out-of-the-box solution, but once that's deployed, we need to work with each commission. I think you're going to like it. What we've done, and I alluded to it in my opening statement, is we feel that the best way to do this with reliability and flexibility is each site will have 2 menu bars. The top menu bar will be 100% controlled by us. It will be locked down by us. It will have information that we believe is important to all 46 commissions. And it actually takes up very little real estate. Yes, it's blue and yes, our logo's there, but it's diminutive. And then below that, we will have the menu bar for the commission. A lot of them have community resources. They have community needs. And so below our menu bar, everything there is going to be focused on the commission where they can customize it however they want. From the 3 sites that I've seen in development with Octo right now, when you go from site to site to site, the navigation is very similar, but they do present themselves as unique websites. So no one's going to feel like this is a top-down decision or that we're trying to control the content they do. Like the pages we're making available to them, they will have 100% control of the content and access to it. We are not going to manage that, and we'll tell them that. But we do think we should manage things like information about open government and FOIA. Like that should be on everyone's website. We are going to manage things about the official records that come into our possession. One area that's really kind of cool is the public calendar, because on their site, it only displays their information, but it's all in the same database on the back end. So on our site, if they were to put in a public meeting on their site, it's automatically going to populate on ours and vice versa.
Right.
And they will still have the ability, like if this time of year, if they give us a whole year's worth of meeting dates and we were to proactively put those in, it will show up on their site. They won't see it for all 46 commissions because it would
Right.
filter only to them, but they would be able to edit that event to add like a link to Zoom, to add the agenda. So we're really trying to look at things like that so that we're not duplicating work or reassigning duties, but really collaborating with each other. And then the QFR portal rebuild, which is a huge project. We're done with the functional requirements. We finished that at the end of the fiscal year, and they're now starting to build out. And again, what we're really looking for there is, as you've mentioned, on the one hand, treasurer's duties and what's required of them has not changed in 50 years, probably, but how it intersects with technology has. And when the program went from the auditor's office to the ONC, the program was jettisoned and it went back to spreadsheets. We got it back to a database as best we could, but we're learning from that, right? I think it's better than the spreadsheets, and I've had some commissioners tell me it's better than the spreadsheets, but it's still not where we want it to be, right? So we want records to interlink with each other. Every concern we've heard, every challenge we've heard, it's gone into the thinking of how this database is to be built. And while it won't lessen any statutory requirements, which is perhaps a different discussion, we're trying to make it easier to use and more intuitive to use. I mean, like, for instance, a really small, simple thing is to print a report in the current system. It's a 2-page report, and it won't print both pages at the same time, which is pretty simple, right?
Right.
So it's a small point of pain, but there's hundreds of those, and we want to clean them up.
Let me go back to the websites. So, and they were way out of date before. I'm excited to see them come into modern times. How do we ensure with turnover in ANC the credentials don't get lost?
Oh, that's pretty simple. Because this is a project that we're paying for and it's coming through our office, we have admin rights, which means that we can go in and reset passwords, and we can always maintain that someone will have access to their website. Just as important, and probably not something that many of us think about, is that because it's going through our office, and I believe it's on Drupal 10 through Octo, like as updates need to occur to that software, they will automatically be applied because it's something they're maintaining. That's our relationship. Oh gosh, now I just had a brain freeze. It's like I'm eating ice cream. Oh, there was something else that I thought was really cool. I apologize for that. It'd come
all
back
right.
to me.
When it does, please just jump in with it. What about document archiving? Is this done commission to commission, or is this centralized in any way?
Good question. So ANCs are currently required to maintain their own documents, and we've had discussions with the archives, and they expect commissions to be sending them their documents, and they really haven't been. It's been something that I've been looking at. I think if one were to identify a short-term need, because we don't have the bandwidth to do it in our office, but perhaps in a short-term contract, if we get a third party to collect all their records, catalog them, get them to the archive, that would be very beneficial. We plan to send to the archives everything that we touch. So even if it doesn't come from the ANC, like meeting minutes, quarterly financial reports, bylaws, those kinds of things, where their annual reports, those are things we actively collect and make available on our website, so we have them. We will give those to the archives, but because they're coming from us, the archives won't put them with the respective ANC.
Yeah, I see.
And I think if you're a researcher and you want to look at the ANCs or look at, say, ANC 6B or 3C, you're going to be asking to see their records, and you will miss that material. So we want to make sure that we get it in. And I've heard from a commissioner in Petworth, by the way, I would love to ingest these records. We just don't have the room. But he says when he was elected, the former commission had boxes and boxes of records that he's just been storing in his basement. And he doesn't know what to do with them. And the only thing I could say is don't throw them out. We will find a way to get them to the archives. Don't throw them out.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, it's probably situations like that across the city. Increasingly, documents are digital, so hopefully there'll be an easier way going forward. But
yeah, what we're trying to do is, at least my plan is, we're trying to finalize our document management schedule. I think we're close to the final version of it. And then what I would like to do is use that as a template and try to create a model template for the ANCs that they could use to adopt, or at least give them the guidance on how frequently they should be sending records to the archives. But without that, it's kind of difficult. We can give them advice in email, and we have, but they want help. And so we need to lean into it to provide something that's more structured.
okay. All right. I have to think through that as well. On financial accountability, obviously there was a situation in SMD 8C07 where there was a misuse of funds. Is there a gap that you see in the current framework for preventing or responding to misuse of ANC funds?
I'm not sure if there's a gap, but I will note something we've observed. So, for instance, in 8C, I believe one of the items that was identified as being used for political purposes were photographs. Now, commissions are permitted to spend money for photographs that are going to show up on the website, and that's how it was presented to us. In another commission, a similar situation, not with anything done improperly, but a commissioner purchased business cards. And I would say in those two examples, the amount that was paid seemed exorbitant to us, but the documentation properly documented what it was for. And there's nothing currently in statute that has a requirement for, like ANCs don't have to do 3 bids. ANCs don't have to look for the most cost-effective solution. They have a lot of freedom. And I would say that Denise can back me up on this. In some cases, we've reached out to them and said, well, I see that you spent X on this. There are much more cost-effective solutions, because we notice these things. And in some cases, we've received somewhat of a hostile response of, that's not your business to tell me how to spend the money. That's a permissible expense. Okay, yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
But I think those are the kinds of things that we would notice up front is that it seems like it's a high dollar amount for the purpose. And then we would need to see the paperwork. Perhaps there would be a follow-up conversation. And if something didn't smell right, we would reach out to the auditor, and
Okay.
we have.
Okay. The overarching issue that I'm trying to figure out in terms of the future of the OANC is how do we address, I mean, what Commissioner said it best, essentially the burdens of the office. Understanding that, yes, they are elected officials, but they're not full-time, and doing it on a volunteer basis. The city is not well-served if there's a high burden or high turnover. And my guess is that if you spoke to commissioners, all or virtually all of them would say, yes, they want to maintain their independence, but they want an increased amount of centralized support. And, you know, we get a lot of support from the secretary's office, the secretary of the council. And so that's what I usually look at as my framework. We also have staffs, though.
Right.
And so, you know, I am trying to figure out how we continue to meet the needs, the ongoing needs of commissioners without reducing or jeopardizing their independence. And so I'd like to work with you on what that looks like, because obviously we're here to support our commissioners and want to make sure they are served as well as possible.
Yeah, again, I don't know how this could be done, but the thought that had come to my mind is even if there were a master contract with perhaps a temp agency or something that could provide basic services, again, we would have to look at it. We would have to see what the commissions could do. I would say if there is something beneficial to all the commissioners, since part of the reason they are funded is to purchase staff, maybe the cost of staff outruns their ability. I know that for some commissions, if you're a commission of 2, or if you're a commission that's only been in existence for 3 years, you don't have deep wells.
Right.
Right, and every penny's going somewhere already. So they don't, like, they know they can spend money that way. They don't have the capacity. But I would say that 2 things on that. One is perhaps the way to fund that would be to have an agreement that since it's serving all the commissions, it comes out of the annual allotment, since that's what it's money for. And because it's 46 commissions, there's some economy of scale and they're paying a far lower cost. So that's using the funding for that purpose in a much smarter way. The other thing I will say is one of the reasons why I really look to shared services as much as possible, because bringing websites into the fold, it also means that they're not paying web hosting. They're not going to pay for GoDaddy and then lose access when it blows up. It just reduces their overall monthly expenditure. And I see another benefit to that is where centralized purchasing can occur in some way, it also reduces the risk of money being spent improperly. And it reduces the need for a receipt in a quarterly financial report. So it's one less thing that needs to be documented in that way.
Right.
So, I mean, there's ripples in the pond, but it's all trying to make things simpler.
Okay. Well, let's work together on this and continue to work to figure it out. As much as I appreciate the distance that OANC has covered, now we got to cover the next distance. So yeah, I want to continue to make progress for commissioners. Those are all the questions I have. So I want to thank you for being with us. Thank you for the work that you and your team are doing. I want to note as we conclude that anyone who was unable to testify today, you can submit written testimony, which will be made part of the official record. Anyone interested in doing that may submit testimony through the dedicated webpage for this hearing on the council's online hearing management system. If you don't know where to find that, you can contact the Committee on Housing at housing@dccouncil.gov or call 202-727-8270. The record for this hearing will remain open until the close of business 2 weeks from today, Thursday, February 12th. If anyone listening is interested in learning more about the work of this committee in my office, please sign up to hear from us at robertwhiteatlarge.com. That concludes the committee's business for today. The time is 1:19 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned.